Class is in session. Welcome to the College Football Hitting the Book Show, Monday, October 20th. Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you, ready to break down another week in college football, week 9 on tap. And as always, you know the slate, you know the routine, weekday games, weeknight games. We got a bunch of them, and then all the Power 4 conference action coming your way on Saturday will be talked about on this show. We do want to mention one thing before we get into this week's card. This week, starting this week, we will have 2 members-only editions of the Hitting the Book Show. For those of you that are subscribed to the channel and are members of the channel, that is going to be Wednesday and Friday moving forward, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. So we will be with you Wednesday at that time for a members-only show. And then, of course, our usual Friday show that we've been doing at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern to tee up the weekend. NFL, college football, NHL, NBA now getting underway. NBA will be part of our members-only shows as well. So excited about that, C-Mac. For the members, the ones that are the backbone of this channel, we're giving them 2 shows a week, Wednesdays and Fridays.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. And this is the time of the year where everything's kind of, as I always say, the best time of year. And second only to the spring with March Madness, the Masters. Best 2 times. Right now, World Series, football, college football, and then everything else starting up with NHL, then NBA, and then soon we will be doing college basketball shows, which you guys know and love. So college basketball will be here shortly.
Those will be free.
Already.
Like the college football, the college basketball shows will be free. They'll be open.
Yes, for the most part. So those will be a few days a week that we'll have that. Yeah. So we'll figure it out. Yeah.
All right, let's dive into it. It's week 9, and we will begin with now. This is definitely in the category of this game only gets talked about because it's a weeknight game. That would be accurate. We've got Kennesaw State taking on Florida International on Tuesday night, and remember, we've got Tuesday night college football now, pretty much moving forward in this crazy consecutive day streak where there's at least one NFL or one college football game every day for like the next several weeks. So great time to be a football fan and football bettor. We have Kennesaw and Florida International. Kennesaw State 3-point road favorites, 49.5 the total. I cashed a ticket with Florida International. C-Mac, did you get involved with FIU in that game against Western Kentucky last week?
No, I didn't.
Oh, you didn't? Yeah.
You had FIU? No,
you
beautiful.
Were thinking about it. I know you were thinking about it. And
well, I didn't see that coming. We'll get to Western Kentucky too. Yeah.
Yeah, not to that extent. Once it hit 10, I'm like, I got to take FIU, especially once I heard that Kewan Jenkins, their quarterback, was going to be good to go and able to play in that game. And that was pretty impressive. The way they shut down Maverick McIver in that passing game, forced him into 3 interceptions. He was just not reading the defense well, throughout that football game. And that was a great effort on defense by the Florida International Golden Panthers. Of course, they get the 25-6 win. Just completely shutting down Western Kentucky, easy as can be, wire to wire, as far as the win and the point spread cover outright as a 10-point dog. We'll see if they can build on that. FIU, certainly used the bye week to their advantage. They came out of it. They had a bad game before the bye against UConn. Certainly on defense, they had been ripped, and then for them to go from giving up 38 points to Delaware, 51 points to UConn, turn around and shut down Western Kentucky. Pretty damn impressive. Now they'll take on a Kennesaw State team that this is, to me, one of the surprise teams of Conference USA this year. I mean, I expected them to be, competitive. I didn't expect them to be 4-2, and I did not expect them to dismantle Louisiana Tech the way they did last week. Outright win as a home dog, 35-7. And Louisiana Tech had covered every point spread this season prior to that loss last week to Kennesaw. But no, I was impressed with this Kennesaw team. Their offense, after a slow start to the year, is picking things up. Dexter Williams II has been impressive. He's throwing the football very well, very effectively. He had 4 touchdowns, no interceptions in the win against a very good Louisiana Tech team last week. This is a really tough game because Florida International as a dog is kind of like the point spread role I like them in. But I don't know if I want to get in the way of Kennesaw right now, playing well, rolling on offense, having scored at least 27 points in 4 straight victories, 3 straight wins in Conference USA play. Or I should say 2 straight wins in Conference USA play. They also played Arkansas State out of the Sun Belt. They won that game outright. I just don't know if I can fade Kennesaw right now. going into this game here. We'll see if FIU's defense can bring it here like they did last week against Western Kentucky, because this Kennesaw offense is definitely going to be a challenge for them. The Kennesaw offense playing the way they are. We saw Keywan Jenkins in the offense after some struggles step up and play better. This total could be a notch light. I was thinking it would be more in the 51 area. I didn't expect it to be, 49 and a half. So I'd probably give you a mild lean to the over here in this game. Sidewise, it's a tough one. I like FIU as a dog normally. Don't know if I want to step in front of Kennesaw, though, right now. And the way Dexter Williams and that offense has it humming. C-Mac, what do you think here? Kennesaw State, FIU.
Yeah, let's hit on it. I think we both probably had big Saturdays. Shout out to you. I had a good Sunday. You had a great Sunday.
Sunday was incredible for me in the NFL.
Yes.
Just an amazing Sunday. Yep. Great stuff.
Browns got it done. Chargers were and one thing with Rattler, I was just worried about, and he had that game with the Saints. I don't know did you have the Saints?
I was on the Patriots. No, that was what game? No, I'm getting my games mixed.
Saints Bears.
Saints Bears. I had
Pat's got that team total. Oh, they were good there.
I had a small bet on the over, but I kept it a small bet once I saw the wind was going to be bad. And the rain was there.
Well, that's been my problem. I mean, we go back to college with Rattler on this show. Yeah. He's been playing a little bit better, and I just thought the Bears, after the big last few wins, now laying way more in the field goal, basically 5.5. That drops down to 3.5, basically before kick. But the rest was good. Cardinals come through, Giants. I took the Broncos live.
Cleveland Browns was one of the best I've seen all year. I thought they were gonna. I expected them. I didn't know how big they would win, but I said I think.
Yes, I did not see that. I was still
is that bad right now.
I think so too. I was skeptical. I'm like, I still bet it, but it was like, ugh. And I just went money line too with it. I didn't want to mess around, but right away they just broke off those. It seemed like they were up quickly there. It was 3-3 after one, and then it was 17-3 for a minute there. So, yeah, congrats to that. Sutton got it done. He did not get in the end zone. Broncos come all the way back though, which was pretty good. So, yeah, shout out to the whole weekend really. Yeah, when I look at this one, Western Kentucky, this was their issue. I don't think anyone saw this game going last week. Just the turnovers out of nowhere, because the yardage in this game was pretty similar when you look at it too. FIU had more penalties, and one thing, FIU, the defense played just so well. They're another team that always scares me when we're betting teams like this, Bavano. Field goals, they had to settle for field goals. Didn't matter when the other team scores 6 points and are turning it over in Western Kentucky. And after a big win for them. But I think they're the only play here. I lean in their way here a little bit. Kennesaw, they are off a bye as well, I believe. 4 straight wins as well. 3 straight covers. We've seen them as home favorites here a little bit, to Middle Tennessee. Now they're on the road. This is my big thing. Even though I think they might be overall a little bit the better football team, maybe little better defense, like when you run through the numbers here. I think both these teams will be able to run the football. But I'm leaning FIU here, especially with there's some 3.5s. I know there's 3s. That's what I'm looking at early on. The total, I'd lean under here. There is nice weather, but like I talked about, I don't know if I trust the defenses, and sometimes it's tough for these teams to score. Kennesaw's been better this year. I mean, this team's played really good football. A little bit surprising maybe to some people. So I was leaning the under here. 49.5.
All right, Western Kentucky and Louisiana Tech, the other Tuesday night game. We've got Louisiana Tech 3.5-point home favorites, 50 the total here in this Conference USA matchup. And for Western Kentucky, it's bounce back time, hopefully, for Maverick McIver, because you may not see him play worse than he did last week, as we talked about against Florida International. He was an interception machine, looked like a deer in the headlights, really, against that defense last week. Just turnovers galore. This was an offense that beat Delaware, beat Missouri State, but going back to the very first game of the season they played, against Sam Houston. Sam Houston State was a pretty good offensive showing, but there's been games where they haven't been rolling on all cylinders, this team, on the offensive side of the football. Louisiana Tech's coming off a blowout loss to Kennesaw State, so you should get focus here from the Bulldogs in this game. They've been going back and forth with their quarterbacks, too. They started early in the year with Evan Bullock, but they've been using Blake Baker quite a bit lately as well, and kind of been going back and forth. And last week was one of those games where, and even Trey Kukuk has been getting an opportunity as well. So but the defense, well, until last week, had been playing well, and then Kennesaw just ends up really going up and down the field against them. It was very impressive. The key handicap, as it always is with Western Kentucky, can you defend the pass? Because they throw the ball, 90% of the time in this air raid attack with David Bowie, or Bowie, the coordinator here. Rick Bowie, I should say, not David. Rick Bowie, the coordinator here for offensive coordinator.
David Bowie.
Yeah, I was going to say David Bowie's not back from the grave, and he didn't turn into it from a great all-time great musician to a college football coach. So, Rick Bowie.
That'd be crazy if he did.
Yeah, Rick Bowie. I mean, Louisiana Tech secondary has been gashed, okay? Their pass defense numbers are not very good, okay? They've given up 249 through the air with their pass defense. That's not what you want to see. They're giving up big yardage as far as throwing the football. They've been very good against the run, but again, Western Kentucky doesn't run the football a whole lot. So from a matchup standpoint here, I think it could work here for Western Kentucky. And I know I ripped on this team last week. And look, I took advantage taking FIU, but I ripped on Western a bit, saying they're a bit not fraudulent, but they had gotten a little fortuitous. Like the Delaware game, they could have lost if not for all the turnovers Delaware had in that game. So it's actually kind of fitting, what goes around comes around. They had benefited from opponents' turnovers, CMAC, and then they finally commit a bunch of turnovers last week against Florida International, and it cost them. So if they clean up the mistakes and the turnovers, they can probably throw the football with success, because the clear weakness of the Bulldogs' defense is the secondary. I think I lean to taking the points in this bounce-back type of situation here with Western Kentucky. And now that Louisiana Tech finally lost and finally failed to cover for the first time this year, maybe now the pendulum swings the other way, and we start to see them maybe not be able to cash tickets for their backers after that strong start ATS to their season. What do you think here, CMAC, Western Kentucky, La Tech?
Yeah, and of course, we have different guys here, like always, but this is last year. I remember this game 12-7. Western Kentucky was at home. La Tech won 12-7. Just a snooze fest. So maybe a little bit of revenge here for Western Kentucky off the bad game. Both these teams, just throw it out there, have been great ATS. They finally, that's why people
down the stretch last year too. I remember.
Yes, they were. Oh yeah,
stretch. Yeah,
down at the end for sure. And they were 5-1 ATS, and that's why people last week, I'm sure, even like them again. But yeah, turnovers finally get them. So, and La Tech though is off the bye, so I think there's a little bit of advantage to them here. But I don't know about at 3. I think this is a great spot for them to win it, and I think Western plays better. I could talk about. So this one's pretty tough. We hit the numbers here. One thing, La Tech, the problem is the passing. So that could be a success, because where they've been their best is against the run. If you want to talk about this defense against these bad teams, of course, that they play, Southern Miss, whoever's on their schedule here. So they should have success here, Western Kentucky. I kind of lean their way in what could be a tight game. This is kind of one that's difficult. Bounce back for both teams. You think La Tech after a bye will play better, but I don't know if I want to lay 3 with them. I kind of agree. If you get more than a field goal, I think Western Kentucky, as long as they take care of the ball like they have earlier, they could be live here.
I don't have a strong opinion on the total in the previous game we talked about. This one, I think I might get there with the over. And
Western Kentucky, 2 road wins. Yeah, I mean before that, Delaware, Missouri. Yeah.
Louisiana Tech is going to look to bounce back on offense here, because they played a lousy offensive game against Kennesaw.
Yeah.
I don't think the quarterback play for La Tech is great. They don't do anything great on offense, but they can run it a little bit. And Western Kentucky has been pretty weak against the run defensively. So the way I see it, I think Louisiana Tech can run on Western, and Western can throw on Louisiana Tech. So I think there's pathways to both teams having their preferred method.
You might be right.
Yeah.
You might be right. Western Kentucky giving over just over 200 yards a game, their defense. Yeah.
And you got to believe that's the focus for both of these head coaches coming off the line. And no weather issues. It's going to be a great night in Ruston, Louisiana here. No wind, no rain. Yeah, no wind, no rain here in Ruston, Louisiana. That's Ain't No Mountain High Enough, by the way, that lyric comes from, in case anyone's wondering. All right, next up, We got Wednesday night.
You got to teach them.
Yeah, I got to teach them the old music, classics.
'em.
Middle Tennessee State, Delaware. I'm blue, dabba dee, dabba die. Does anyone remember that song from like 1999, Eiffel 65? That's what this game is. This is your blue dabba dee game of the week. You got the Blue Raiders taking on the Blue Hens here in this one. Middle Tennessee State and Delaware. Delaware, 8.5-point home favorites. Kind of in a goofy mood today, as you can tell. 55 the total here in this game. Delaware here, a team that really stepped onto the scene early this year. A newbie to FBS in the Conference USA, obviously. Really had opened some eyes to what they were doing. They beat UConn as a dog. They crushed the Florida International, and certainly it got my attention, those two wins. And the fact they were pretty competitive for a majority of the game against Deion Sanders in Colorado weeks ago. But then the last couple, it's almost like usually a bye week helps a team. They had their bye week, and since the bye week, 0-2 straight up and against the spread, losing outright as favorites back-to-back weeks against Western Kentucky and Jacksonville State. So it's like the bye week kind of shook up the momentum and the rhythm here for this Delaware team. I like the quarterback, Minicucci. The one thing we're starting to see more and more from him, though, are a few mistakes. Now, he did have 422 through the air last week. We had the over in that Jacksonville State Delaware game, which was good to cash that.
They got to run it.
Yeah.
Delaware. They got to run it, man.
Yeah, one-dimensional. You're 100% right about that. I mean, 34 rushing yards on 22 carries. You get you're not even averaging 2 yards per rush last week in that game against Jacksonville State. So there's zero run game to speak of for what we saw at Delaware last week against Jacksonville State. That being said, I think we all downgraded Jacksonville State a little bit too much. They've clearly exceeded expectations. We thought this team was going to be just totally rebuilding after losing everybody and Ridge Rod bolting to West Virginia, and that really hasn't been the case. So we got to give Jacksonville State credit. But now Delaware's back at home. We've seen them have some pretty good efforts at home. Don't be fooled by the last home game against Western Kentucky. They lost that game. They should have won it, really. I thought they outplayed Western Kentucky, but turnovers. They had multiple red zone turnovers. Minicucci fumbled it right before the goal line, and Western Kentucky took over. I remember that game greatly. They probably deserved a better fate there. Remember, they upset UConn as an 8.5-point home dog in their So they've been good at home this year. Delaware, pretty strong home field. And the fact, relatively speaking, of course, for a Conference USA team. I mean, they're not packing 90,000 people there like Alabama, but I'm just saying for a Conference USA team, and the fact that it's a national TV game on a Wednesday night, it could be a decent atmosphere here in Delaware for this game. But the money's come in on Middle Tennessee State, and I will say this, Middle Tennessee State, their last two losses against a pretty good Kennesaw team. They lost by 8, didn't cover, but nearly did. And then, of course, off the bye week against Missouri State, they lose 22-20. They were right in that game. Vadiato, who's been here forever, was pretty solid in that game, but unfortunately, opportunities to score points in the red zone kind of failed them a little bit. And they also faced a backup quarterback for Missouri State in that game because Deuce Bailey was in at quarterback for Missouri State, replacing the injured Jacob Clark. But, Middle Tennessee State the last couple of weeks has been competitive. And that's probably what people see in taking the points here with the Blue Raiders in this game. I think if you got it early, I think it might have been a few too many points, 8.5. I still think you could take the points with Middle Tennessee, but they're a very difficult team for me to trust. Delaware has been good at home. If Delaware beats Western Kentucky, they could be even laying double digits, in my opinion, here in this game. But that's the key. Turnovers are hard to handicap, and it seems like when Delaware has come up short, and that Western Kentucky game stands out, turnovers have did them in. So we'll see how this one plays out. But and Delaware's an over or pass team as far as totals go. I think their offense is good enough, but the more I watch this Delaware defense, they've been gashed now 38-20, 20 Western Kentucky when they got going, they put up a big number, 41 they gave up to UConn. So like I said, it's over or pass for me with this total. CMAC, what do you think here? MTSU Delaware.
Adam, what's up? I think the theme song to Life Goes On is the Beatles, Obla Di Obla Da, but I'm not sure. We have to look that up.
Yeah.
I think it was though. But let's get to this. We've got plenty of musical trivia, tons too. As I know, just as I know Tom Beatles. I mean,
I know there was a character named
crazy.
Corky and Murphy Brown. That much I know. Murphy Brown, yeah.
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 All right, let's get to this game. This game's got a little bit of wind, but it looks pretty good. I don't know, 10 to 15 here. I think when you look at this, it's Delaware, a bounce back spot for them. But I wonder a little bit, there's too much love for this team that's brought back a ton on both sides of the ball. And maybe they were just a little bit too overhyped. I mean, they're still jumping up, in talent, even though, of course, now they're with the big boys at least, but playing Middle Tennessee, Marshall, Kennesaw on their schedule. And I think there might be too much love for them in this one. So I'm leaning already to Middle Tennessee. I think this team isn't great, but going through all their game stuff, especially last night, they've been really close in ball games, whether they beat Nevada at Nevada. Of course, they lose to Marshall. We talked about Marshall. Shout out to Marshall getting the OT win, too, this weekend. And losing to Kennesaw close, and same thing with Missouri State. So I think they have enough in this game. Delaware, the problem's been like last game there, they just shot themselves in the foot. They couldn't stop the run. Penalties again. They had 10 penalties for 82 yards. Did Delaware. That's just not going to work out. They got to clean stuff up if they want to be a lot better here. And the defense, I'm just worried about it. Wow, Middle Tennessee, one of the bottom teams, does run the football. They're another one. And that's where a problem for Delaware has been, as we saw last week when Jacksonville State ran for 255. They're giving up 171 yards per game. But I still think Middle Tennessee will have enough success throwing it a little bit. And you got to think, even though as much they're going to try to run it, that it'll work out enough. So I'm leaning the points here with them. It seems like a good spot. Delaware State, Middle Tennessee, too. They're off a bye. Yes. Just wanted to double check that. Yeah. Bye for Middle Tennessee. I wanted to jot that down here. So yeah, a lot of love. Maybe Delaware has a big game, but I think you're paying a little bit of a tax for it.
I agree. It's too much to play with Delaware.
Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, and Middle Tennessee down school. I mean, we talked about how bad, but I thought, like I went through, they played some of these games tough and tight. Hung in there.
Yeah, lean dog, lean over for me, because I think Middle can run on Delaware. Delaware's run defense is not great. And
even though they don't, that's what they should still be able to run a bit. Even though they're not great at running it, they still should be able to do okay.
Yeah.
And the quarterback play, Vati, he's been pretty good.
He has.
He's
that's
bad.
the only concern. I mean, they're almost dead at the bottom, Middle Tennessee State, in rush attempts per game, and yet they're 11th in pass attempts. So they're a very pass-heavy offense, and so that's my one fear. But like I said, Delaware to me coming out, little. And Tennessee a bye week. So, yeah, like I said, I think Delaware's the better team. I like how they're at home. It's a national TV game, but I can't get there at 8.5. I just can't. All right, Missouri State, New Mexico State. We've got Missouri State 1.5-point road favorites, 52 being the total in this game. Note that with these Conference USA weeknight games, last week it seemed like both teams playing each other were off a bye. This week it looks like a lot of these games, one team's off a bye and the other team isn't. And we've got another one of these situations here. New Mexico State played last week against Liberty. Heartbreaking loss, 30-27 to Liberty. But New Mexico State, I said New Mexico State still might be worth a look. I don't trust Liberty as double-digit favorites, and they proved me why in that game last week. But tough loss for Logan Fife and the New Mexico State Aggies. They probably should have won that game. But unfortunately, Liberty gets the game-winning touchdown with 36 seconds. It was a pretty good game from Logan Fife. No mistakes, 242 through the air. They were able to move the football pretty good. They chipped in a little bit on the ground as well. But unfortunately, and what New Mexico State, what concerns me about New Mexico State here is, there was 2 interceptions and a lost fumble for Liberty. So Liberty turned it over 3 times, and Liberty was still able to overcome that and win the game. Yeah, Ethan Vasco for Liberty turned it over twice, and then they had a lost fumble as well. So when you're losing games where the other team turns it over 3 times, that's not a good sign normally here for New Mexico State. So, I do worry about that. For Missouri State, Deuce Bailey was the quarterback last week in place of Jacob Clark, who's still been out due to injury. Now, Ryan Beard, the head coach, says Jacob Clark should be back here. At least last I heard is that they were aiming for after the bye week to get him back for this game against New Mexico State. And, of course, they're off a bye, Missouri State. So this could give them an opportunity to get Jacob Clark, their number one quarterback, back on the field here in this game. And that's significant because New Mexico State's a little bit worse against the pass so far this season. They actually have decent yards per rush numbers defensively, New Mexico State, against the run. But this is another team that throws the ball more than runs it, Missouri State, that is. So if they get Jacob Clark, I think they can move the football here through the air on this New Mexico State secondary. I like Missouri State in this spot. The only thing I'm holding out is waiting for, I should say, is Jacob Clark's confirmed status. I think he is going to play. The coach sounded like he'd be good to go after the bye. And if he's in there, I think anything less than a field goal off the bye week. I know it's in Las Cruces, road game here for Missouri State, and I think they can get this victory here coming off the bye week. And I also hate the spot for New Mexico State in that they not only are they facing a team CMAC off a bye week, but they are through, they've had some tough games. They've had to play New Mexico, they had to play Louisiana Tech. They have this gut-wrenching loss at Liberty last week, and it may not be easy to rebound from a loss like that here for the Aggies. So I think Missouri State's sitting in a pretty good situational spot here, and I think they have the matchup edges if Jacob Clark returns at quarterback, because the secondary is the weak link of the New Mexico State D. What do you think here, Connor, with Missouri State, New Mexico State?
To touch on the D, that's both, I think, issues with both these defenses. And they're both going to want to throw it, both teams, especially if Clark, even if Clark doesn't play. Yeah. But, I mean, both these teams throw it well. I mean, it's kind of weird to see New Mexico State's just a team that chucks it now, and we know that with Missouri State. So I think this game's pretty even. I think this line is pretty sharp. What I have to say, New Mexico State, we've talked about it last week with Liberty. This team's good. A little bit they had been bad as a road dog. Now they're catching 11 last week. But where they've been great for me here the last years is at home. I know they're barely a dog here, but I've wanted to back them. You talked about it. Missouri State off the bye in this game. Clark would be a huge bump for them. But I can't back them. I don't want to back them on the road. I just don't want to do it. And one thing, though, this game could be close. I think we've already seen some close games with these teams, especially Missouri State. So, I mean, this one could come down to the wire here. And when you think about it, that both these teams throw it, and I wanted to check, how fast is Missouri State playing here? I have it pulled over here.
Well, Missouri,
because they both want to throw it.
They both want to throw it, there's no doubt, but neither team is a blazer as far as pace is concerned.
I knew New Mexico State wasn't.
Missouri State's 97th, and I know New Mexico State here, hasn't been exact. Yeah, they're 64th, so the pace is going to be a little below average, but both teams will throw more than run, and the total's 52. So it's going to be one of these games where the pace isn't going to be off the charts, but if both teams can throw successfully and both teams are weaker defensively against the pass, you could get efficiency, at least enough efficiency to still get close to, if not up and over 52. Don't love the total, but I think it could maybe.
Yeah, me too. I think I'm going to sit on it here the next couple of days. But, yeah, I lean here at New Mexico State. I think that's the only way to look. And we'll see. I don't know if it moves much with Clark. I think they're expecting him back.
Yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he is. I think he is for sure. It sounded like it. All right, next up, we've got Thursday night football, the only Thursday night game. We go to the Sun Belt, South Alabama, Georgia State. South Bama, 6.5-point road favorites, 55.5 being the total in this game. Let's see what the weather is for Atlanta, where this one is. And remember, Georgia State plays on campus now. None of this nonsense where they play at the Dome anymore. But it looks like, 4.5 mile per hour winds, no wind, no rain there. So good weather coming up on Thursday night. I think I have to take Georgia State here, quite honestly, because South Alabama's collapsed. I don't know what's happened here to the South Alabama Jaguars, but this has been a really brutal last few weeks. I mean, they're 0-4 straight up and against the spread. Their last 4 games. They're actually 0-6 straight up, going back to the loss they suffered against Tulane. They covered against Tulane and Auburn as big dogs, but you look at them as favorites here. 16-point favorite, they lose outright to Coastal in a mistake-prone game by South Alabama. They get whipped by North Texas. They get lose to Troy, in a pick-em range. They're actually a slight favorite, but they lost to Troy 31-24. And then Arkansas State. And I was on Arkansas State plus the points last week. I said, you know what? I got to move on this. I don't trust South Alabama's current form right now, laying more than a touchdown. And sure enough, they lost outright to Arkansas State. And Arkansas State, you would have told me Arkansas State was only going to score 15 points. I said South Alabama was going to roll them because their defense, Arkansas State's been the issue. But the defense completely bottled up South Alabama. Davenport only had 118 passing yards. They couldn't run the football at all in that game, South Alabama, for the most part. Just an ugly, ugly game overall. And then, of course, they get beat on the last second field goal in that game. So there's some real problems here. And to be honest with you, I have never been the biggest Major Applewhite fan. To me, that was a little bit of a head-scratching, peculiar coaching hire that South Alabama made. And I don't know if he's doing a particularly good job here. Now, Georgia State, it's a leap of faith. It's not a good football team, Georgia State. Coming off a beatdown in the rivalry game against Georgia Southern on Saturday, 41-24. I was on the over in that game, so it was good to hit that. App State, they get blown out 41-20. Their defense has been just pretty bad.
They fell apart in the fourth against Southern this last week. Yeah.
That said, they have had moments where they've gotten up, like James Madison. I don't think anyone saw that coming with how bad their run defense is. That 20-point dog only lost by 7 at home against James Madison. That's where the issue lies. The run defense is horrible for Georgia State. Can they run the football? And South Alabama's better running it than throwing it. So that is the concern. I mean, it's tailor-made for South Alabama to have success moving the ball on the ground, but they were supposed to have success on the ground last week. They were supposed to have success. There's been multiple weeks now where the offenses look just totally out of sync, out of sorts here. And that's a concern for me here for South Alabama right now. Now they do get a little bit of South Alabama gets the full prep week and then some because this is Thursday. They played last Tuesday. Georgia State's playing on a short week. I don't love that for Georgia State, but I can't lay 6.5 with South Alabama in their current form. It's the question of, do I take Georgia State as a home underdog here? I am leaning that way, though. I can tell you that. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I'd love for this to be more than a touchdown here to get 7 or more because I already like it with Georgia State. I think we have to take it. How bad they are. They kind of need to sell out their defense on the run because that's the one thing South Alabama's bad as they've been in their offense. They've been able to run the football, and Georgia State just hasn't been able to stop it.
Force them to throw it on you. That's what you got to do here for Georgia State.
And one other thing, South Alabama's defense has been bad. Georgia State maybe's got to try to run it a bit more. They don't. They want to throw it, and that's been a little bit of the strength for South Alabama. 23rd, they give up 175 yards through the air to South Alabama. But I think Georgia State, one thing, the series has been dead nuts unders the last few years. And it's just weird middle of the week because even when I think Georgia State's been an over team, seems like how is there not points with them in this game? But if you're ever going to get up, it's here, I think, at home midweek where both these teams have just been, if you want to be back in them, you're not making any money. And they're both 1-6, 2-6, 1-6 ATS for Georgia State. But yeah, I think I love that more than the touchdown here with Georgia State. I think they could at least keep it close at home. Just that fourth quarter where they were in with Georgia Southern, he gave up 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, I know it was a close game till then. Yeah.
I know. It's horrible. So we'll see if this maybe goes up, how this works out. But I already kind of like them at 6.5. Georgia State. I got a feeling. Little Beatles there, since we already threw it out. Yeah. I got a feeling.
Yeah, I'll say this about Georgia State. The quarterback change seemed to work. Cameron Brown took over from TJ Finley, and he played well. He did against Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern's defense is rough, I get it, but 280 through the air, didn't have an interception. 29 for 38. That's a heck of a completion rate. Great completion percentage. He's a dual threat. He ran for 120 on the ground. Cameron Brown, including a touchdown. And he sparked the offense for Georgia State. So give them credit. They made the quarterback change. It looked like an upgrade to me because TJ Finley was kind of sputtering earlier in the season.
I agree. So, yeah. Go with Brown and let's take care of the ball, which he did pretty good this week.
I mean, you take away the fourth quarter meltdown, and they were leading. Not only were they were actually leading that football game going into the fourth quarter, and then 21 unanswered for Georgia Southern. Thing is, though, South Alabama, to me, less likely to rip off a run like that because their offense has just looked out of sorts now for several weeks.
Yes.
That is a favorite. So, yeah, you and I are on the same page here. We can only look at the home underdog, plus the points there in that one. All right, let's go to Friday. We've got North Texas and Charlotte. North Texas, 26.5-point road favorites, 60.5 the total here in this game. I got to give North Texas credit. I didn't think it was going to be easy for them to bounce back from that first loss against South Florida, but they did, and they just put a beat down on UTSA. That was impressive, although UTSA was pretty bad. UTSA had 3 lost fumbles. Turnovers got the better of them. Drew Mestamaker was a lot better. Caleb Hawkins running the football was great as well. Wyatt Young, a big game in the receiving game. They put up, almost 600 yards against UTSA last week. So that was a nice bounce back for North Texas after that tough loss to USF. We'll see if they can keep it rolling here. They should be able to. There's a really rough and bad Charlotte 49er defense that just gave up 49 to Temple in a 49-14 loss over the weekend. USF put 54 up on the board against them. When you look at North Texas, a very strong overall passing team, and the passing numbers haven't been great. They're giving up, 66.5% completion rate is 112 in the country. They are giving up, and Drew Mestamaker has a 36th quarterback ranking and quarterback rating in the country. Charlotte's defense is giving up a 128th ranking in the country for opposing quarterback rating so far this year. So Mestamaker should be able to feast. They should be able to run the football, too, to stay balanced. The one thing about North Texas this year is they're at least running the ball a bit. They still throw it more, but they're running it a little bit more than they have in the past. It's not an exclusive air raid offense anymore. And Charlotte is giving up a woeful 216 per game on the ground, 5.1 yards per rush. You've got a team in North Texas that's 28th in the country, 457 yards per game offensively. Defensively, Charlotte 122, 438.4 yards per game given up defensively. So it feels like North Texas here, should be able to move the football and score points here at will in this matchup. They've scored, the points have been unbelievable. 59, 45, 36, 36, 55 is what we've seen from this North Texas team here in recent weeks. So weather in Charlotte on Friday night, no rain, no wind. It's going to be fine. This is probably, and I've done this before with Charlotte. I've picked on them and bet the opposing team over their team total. Now it's 43.5, 44.5 here for North Texas, but it still, I think, can get there. It really could. It's a big number. But boy, oh boy, it still might. I lean that way, and the full game over too. I think Charlotte, though, can finally move the ball a bit. I know their offense is not very good. They scored only 14 against Temple, only 7 against Army. They did score 26 against South Florida, a few weeks ago, this Charlotte offense. I know it's been rough. He's been, back and forth with Zach Wilkie and Grayson Loftus, the Duke transfers as quarterbacks, Tim Albin, but maybe they can do enough here against North Texas on defense to help you get over that full game as well. What do you think here, Connor, with North Texas, Charlotte?
Yeah, it seems like even with that team total, they could get there. You start getting these numbers, it's they could a pretty easy win and score 42. That doesn't cash. So it's but it seems like they can't. I mean, Temple just hung up 49. Charlotte was at home for that game there. The defense has been awful. I talk about, especially when you're one of these lower teams like Charlotte. I hate the 2 quarterback. So, I've talked about that nausea here. It does not work. The only way it works is if you have a regular guy, maybe a guy comes in and he runs a little bit in a while. But not having back and forth, you don't know who you want. I can't stand it. So it seems like North Texas just kind of named. I mean, this offense has been really, really good all year. Now, and one thing that UTSA game, they're not very good this year. I was shocked. Well, they just got a Rice team that can't come back because they can't throw. UTSA. But they just boat raced them here last week, 55-17.
A lot of turnovers, 3 lost fumbles for UTSA.
Yes.
They didn't help themselves, but still, it was impressive.
It was. And that's all I need. Tons of penalties, too. I think they had 10 for about 90 yards in that game, did UTSA. So, yeah, North Texas here. They should win big. Usually at home, though, I can't. I've just seen Charlotte too much. You would need more than 26 here. You need over the 4 touchdowns.
That said, they almost covered against South Florida. They almost did. It was right around the number.
Yeah.
Game.
You would need 20. You would need 29 here. 20. And this has come down. This opened 28.
Yep.
Right around there, I think. 28.5. Yep. So it has come down here for Charlotte. People seeing just a massive number, even for North Texas on the road.
It is. It is. That's why if you like North Texas, take the team total, because my guess is they won't cover this point spread unless they score at least 45. In my opinion, they probably have to get over the team total to cover the 26.5 anyway here in this one. All right, Cal and Virginia Tech. We've got Virginia Tech 4-point home favorites, 49.5 the total. This is also a Friday game. I mean, this is a clear situational spot advantage for Virginia Tech. There's no doubt about that. This is pretty troubling here for Cal that, they played Saturday night. Think about this. They played Saturday night, late game at home against North Carolina. Now you lose a day of practice, and now you got to make the coast-to-coast flight, Berkeley, California, to Blacksburg, Virginia, for this game on Friday night, short week with extensive travel. This is very, very tough situationally here for Cal. Not to mention here, you've got Virginia Tech rested and ready off a bye week. So it's been extra time to prepare here for this Virginia Tech team, which, of course, now, as we know, they have an interim coach. They had gotten rid of Brent Pry earlier this year. So that'll be interesting to see how the coaching staff is able to get their team in position here. Philip Montgomery, of course, now the interim head coach with Virginia Tech. It's set up very nicely situationals in favor of the Hokies here. But can I lay 4 with this team? That's the question. That's the problem, right? Are they good enough? Are they trustworthy enough? And this is a team that's lost. They had the 1-game bump where they beat NC State as a road dog, first game after the firing. And then, of course, we saw first FBS game after the firing. But then they lose outright, a 6-point favorites at home against Wake. And then, of course, they lose to Georgia Tech 35-20 a couple weeks ago. So, 0-2 straight up and against the spread since that one game where they stepped up following the coaching change against NC State. And the same old issues persist here with Virginia Tech. Kyron Drones is not erratic, not consistent, mistake-prone, throws interceptions, hasn't developed, hasn't gotten better from day one. Pedestrian numbers this year, 60% completions, 11 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. You look at their ability to run the football. It's been hit or miss this year for Virginia Tech. What are we going to get from Cal is the question. I'll tell you what, Cal easily could have lost to North Carolina, and I don't like the way their game is trending. They collapsed against Duke. They had that hot start against Duke, and then they didn't do anything after that. They let North Carolina hang around. Jaron Kiave-Sagapolutele has regressed a little bit, although it's not all on his plate why the struggles have been there offensively. They're dropping way too many passes. It is insane how many passes this Cal receiving core is dropping. They've just got to make the plays that are there, and they're too often. Sagapolutele is actually throwing a good pass, and they're not coming through with the reception. That's got it. They got to fix that. Too many butterfingers right now with this Cal receiving core, and that's really hurt them in some of these games. So this is a really tricky game. Normally, I like Wilcox as a dog, but a short week with coast-to-coast travel and playing a team at home on a Friday night off a bye, I mean, it screams Virginia Tech situationally. But I probably can't trust Virginia Tech enough to lay 4, so it ultimately means I probably lay off this game. What do you think here, Cal, Virginia Tech?
I know. This one's kind of tough here with Cal. I don't think they've been playing great. They get the fumble there this last week. It's just a crazy game. It didn't do enough offense. They couldn't run the ball again. That's been their problem.
Yep.
And this Cal team they can't run. Then you got to throw it so much, and the receivers, you mentioned the drops haven't been Good. Yeah, it's been sloppy too. This team's been that game. They had a bunch of penalties. Watching that thing, it was not good. Now the defense is still the better defense here, maybe not by much, and that's why if I had to, even though the situation, Virginia Tech off a bye here at home at night, you want to back them, but drones and everything else, I don't know if I can. Wilcox has been pretty good. We talk about it as a dog, but he hasn't been too bad. I gotta look up though. Go in the East here. He's been pretty good. They did cover. They won against BC, who's horrible, as we know. But I think they covered at Auburn. Like the last 3 or 4 games, the last few years, they've been pretty good here travel wise. And I gotta double check that before this game a little bit, because I like to back them in a spot like this. So this one's tough. Gosh, it seems like Virginia Tech gets up for this year. Big game Friday night. Oh, I don't know if I can lay it. So yeah, as of now, I'm off.
All right, Boise State and Nevada, also a Friday night matchup here. This one in the Mountain West. Boise State, 22-point road favorites here in Reno, and the total here sitting at 50.5, 51, pretty much across the board. Well, one of my top plays last week in college football, couldn't have been any easier. I said UNLV Boise is going to go over the total, and you didn't even have to sweat it. You knew in the early second quarter, that over the total.
First quarter, shit. It was a little slow early, but it was going.
You knew it. And we said it last week teeing up UNLV Boise State. UNLV is not stopping Boise State's run game. They are not. They are not. And don't be fooled by and some of their defensive numbers were not that great, and it was against one of the weaker schedules you'll ever see. And UNLV still had mediocre at best defensive numbers, but it was a field day. I mean, Dylan Riley alone had 201 rushing yards for Boise State against UNLV last week. Cameron Bates, Zaire Gaines chipped in. I think what was very, very disheartening for UNLV is that Maddox Madsen looked like Montana against them throwing the ball too. 253 passing yards for Maddox Madsen in that game. And this offense, other than getting shut down on the road by Notre Dame, they've got it humming right now. And South Florida, I still can't believe they only scored 7 against South Florida, but they were just out of sync. But they're not out of sync anymore. Take out USF, take out Notre Dame, those 2 games. Boise has scored 51, 49, 47, 41, and 56 in every other game. So they've got it rolling right now. The question is going to be, what can Nevada's defense do against it? When you look at the Nevada defensive numbers this year, they're below average. They're 79th in yards per play allowed on defense. They're giving up 156 per game on the ground, 4.2 yards per carry. And you look at this Nevada schedule, Sacramento State, Middle Tennessee State. It hasn't been an overly challenging schedule of opponents offensively. It's gotten a little tougher now. Western Kentucky, I wouldn't say Fresno's a great offense, but they got tested there. And then the last 2 weeks, San Diego State ripped them for 44 points a couple weeks ago. New Mexico ended up with 24 points against them, albeit that was a good competitive loss, 24-22. I will say this. I think there's some hope with Carter Jones, the new starting quarterback for Nevada.
Yeah, better than Purdy, yes.
Way better than Purdy. It's not even a comparison. I think there's a little offense now to Nevada. You know what? I don't trust Nevada to slow down this freight train that is Boise offensively, but I think Nevada might be able to. I keep saying that Boise's defense can be had at times. And even though they pounded UNLV and they scored on almost every possession, they still gave up points. And UNLV moved the football for a good chunk of that game with Calandria. So I don't think it's as good a Boise defense as certainly not as good. I think I'm very confident saying that that's not the same Boise defense as last year. I think their defense has taken a step back so far this season. So, the weather at Reno on a Friday night, it looks like wind's not going to be that bad, 10 miles per hour, not much rain. I'm tempted by either over 51 because I think Nevada's offense, I got the arrow pointing up since the quarterback. I'm not saying they're a great offense, but they're better with Carter Jones, in my opinion, at quarterback than Purdy. I'm leaning the full game over, but maybe also a Nevada, because I think it's not a bad spot for Nevada catching Boise off that big beatdown that gave them the upper hand in the Mountain West standings over UNLV, that maybe Nevada hangs around. I don't know if I trust the defense. So rather than the plus 22, maybe look at a team total over for Nevada here in this game, which is around 13 and a half. It's below the key number of 14. Can Nevada score 14 points at home with a better quarterback now in Carter Jones against this Boise defense and a potential, I don't want to say flat spot, but they put a lot more into that game last week than I'm sure they will here. I think the Nevada team total over at 13 and a half might be worth a look here in this spot. CMAC, what do you think?
Well, and Jones, did he come in or he started the San Diego State game.
Yes, he did. Yeah, that was his first start. Yeah,
that was his first start. Okay.
That one was a struggle, but massive improvement last week. You could see it getting better, more comfortable. Yeah.
I kind of think they could get that too. I mean, it's showing
for 14 points here. I'll say this about Boise too. They've given up 31 to UNLV, 25 to New Mexico, 14 to App State, 37 to Air Force, 14 to Eastern. They've given up 14 points to everybody this year. And 14 is all we need from Nevada.
Yeah, Nevada. The change is the biggest thing with the quarterback because I think it could help. This offense still is not very good with Nevada. They just are. And the two other home game, Middle Tennessee, 13 points, and San Diego State, 10. Yeah. You know, it seems like if Boise gets up, though, they definitely could get at least a late score, have 2 touchdowns in this game. And I think if you like Boise, and it's showing how, with this total, kind of how low it is, but it seems like Boise's going to get their team total. I wouldn't be just going crazy and laying 3 touchdowns. But I still think they can get Nevada at times is, you know, against some of these teams has hung around. Some of these have been bad offenses. But it seems like Boise gets that. So why mess around? Lay the 3 touchdowns, just take their team total in this game. I think they could get there.
All right, we go turn to Saturday now. The rest of the games on this edition of the show. Baylor and Cincinnati. We've got Cincinnati 5.5-point home favorites, 67.5 the total. It's obviously a big total. And Baylor again, same old nonsense with them. This is eventually what's going to cost Dave Aranda his job. He's a defensive guy, and this defense can't stop anybody. Still can't stop anybody. They lose 42-36 to TCU last week. I feel bad for Sawyer. You know, that's 2 games really 3 games they've lost this year where he's played well in defeat and they can't stop a nosebleed on the defensive side of the football. It's unfortunate for him. Now, he did have 3 interceptions, too, against TCU, so he hasn't been perfect, but he's been let down by that defense just far too often. And that's the issue right now with Baylor. And now you got to try to shut down this. And we've said this now multiple weeks for Cincinnati. It's a really good offense. I've come around on it. Brendan Sorsby, he's throwing it. He's running it. He's really leading this team, commanding it in the huddle for this Cincinnati team on offense. Do I trust Baylor on the road to get stops here at Nippert Stadium against this Bearcat offense? No, because they haven't shown you evidence they can stop anybody throughout the course of the season. So Cincinnati should be able to do their damage here. This is another one where a Cincinnati team total, especially at home. I've cashed some Cincy team totals a couple of times this year. I added against Oklahoma State last week when they played Iowa State at home. Yeah, easy. Yeah,
Oak State. It's like the best gift that keeps on giving for me.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt. Just fading Oklahoma State. Yeah, I was on a bunch of Cincinnati minus the points, the team total over. So it was good to hit both of those. Team total here 34.5. Some books have 35.5. So try to get it below the key number. But I could see them going over that. I don't know where the stops come from for Baylor. High total, but I've said this I think on a couple previous shows. I'm not betting anything Baylor under the total. Doesn't mean I'm going to bet every Baylor game over, but I'm certainly not betting any Baylor game under right now. And the weather right now, it looks like for Cincinnati on Saturday, it looks like 30% chance of rain, so slight chance of rain, not much, and no wind. So the weather shouldn't be that bad at the moment for Cincinnati on Saturday. So I would lean to either a Bearcat team total over or a full game over here. CMAC, Baylor, Cincy.
Yeah, Baylor, just the stops. Like they just can't keep anything going a full game. Like they had a few early, versus TCU. One thing in that game too, it's just some teams like the delay It's just they
Another
came out from
it. Run the football, Baylor.
Yeah. Oh, well, we can get to that. They definitely can't run it. But this team's, I agree. Like, how is there just not a bunch of points? I'm pleasantly surprised. The Cincinnati offense, like you talked about, has been really, really good. And of course, we're getting into the high and later in the weeks that, maybe it would have been 62 3 or 4 weeks ago, 67 and a half. Since he's been so good, like, I think it's just tough because the scoring for Baylor will be there. Like, that's tempting now with them as a dog because they just can't stop anything. Can they just be in a game that's when a shootout, which they have to be? You know what I mean? They have to be in a 41-38. Maybe that's why they cover here. So Cincy, all year 6-1, 5-2 against the number. Easy win last week. It's, of course, horrible Oklahoma State. I kind of like Baylor. I haven't wanted to take them really, just overs or team total. I haven't since the Auburn week 1. Last week I haven't wanted favorites,
but they're not easy to bet against as underdogs because they can always backdoor you with that offense.
I know.
They don't stop the other team.
Definitely. They have the weapons.
Going back to why you're leaning Baylor, I'll say this for Cincy. Their secondary has been ripped at times.
It has.
Yards through the air, and you're talking about a team that can only throw the football. They have no run game, Baylor, but they've got a really good passing game and a guy that can sling it in Sawyer Robertson. So, yeah, that's why over 67.5. Like, to me, how does this not go over the total? I mean, it was 42-36 in the TCU Baylor game last week.
It seems like everyone too is just going to want Cincy. I wonder if this moves a little bit more. Like, great team ATS against Baylor, who has been great and been horrible ATS. 1-6. That's another problem. Yeah, with them 1-6.
Keep in mind the two Baylor Big 12 losses in conference play, 6-point loss to TCU and a 3-point loss to Arizona State. So, like I said, it's not easy to lay points against them, even though their defense is bad, because they can score and they can trade points usually with just about everybody.
I mean, they beat K-State. You're right. They lost that game at Arizona State by 3. So they beat SMU 48-45. It's just going to have to be that. Yeah, like a shootout type game. Yep. Which is just the style. We get a defense here going. Baylor. Right.
All right, TCU, West Virginia. We stay in the Big 12. TCU 15-point road favorites, 57 the total here in this game. We'll keep an eye on the quarterback situation here for West Virginia rather. Jalen Henderson did not play in the game against UCF. Khalil Wilkins remained the starter. He's more of a Wildcat RPO quarterback. He's not really great throwing it. He only had 47% of his passes completed against UCF, 81 passing yards in that game. So it's pretty one-dimensional with him at quarterback. So we'll see if Henderson's able to play here in this game for West Virginia. And, of course, they got blown out 45-13 at UCF. TCU, meanwhile, coming off the win against Baylor, bouncing back from the tough loss they suffered against Kansas State the week before that. West Virginia, like I said, it's been pretty ugly. 4 straight losses, all 4 of them by double digits. The smallest margin of defeat was that 38-24 loss to Baylor, so they have been pretty wretched. They've been obviously riddled with injuries, and that certainly hasn't helped their cause either. I think the key thing here for this matchup is they have to be able to run the football, West Virginia, to do anything against this TCU defense, and TCU defense is respectable against the run. It's the pass that they've been more vulnerable. So I don't know if West Virginia can take advantage. They want to run. They don't have much of a passing game, especially if it's Wilkins, but TCU's been good against the run, or at least better against the run defensively. I don't know, and they haven't been as good against the pass, but is West Virginia going to be able to do anything throwing the ball on them? They just don't have much of a passing game with this Wilkins kid at quarterback. So maybe if it's Henderson, you could twist my arm into taking in a big number like this with West Virginia. But if it's Wilkins, I have a hard time seeing them move the football to the point where maybe West Virginia's team total could stay under, because I just don't know where the offensive six, like UCF's not got a great defense. Okay. And with Wilkins at quarterback, they still were only able to muster 13 points in that game. So that's kind of what I see here. I don't see them having a ton of success with Wilkins because TCU's been okay against the run, and they don't have the quarterback arm right now to take advantage of the TCU secondary, which is the weaker part of that D. And meanwhile, Hoover, with what we've seen, he might be able to do some damage here against this ailing West Virginia defense. What do you think here, TCU, West Virginia?
Yeah, he should. It's just the quarterback play for West Virginia. Like, we just had a little bit. I want to take them here in this game. We talked about Will because, they've had that Fox in there too. He hasn't done anything in these couple games. He was in the last one too, and with BYU, and the defense just getting torn. Now, through the numbers, their pass defense is a little bit better than their run defense is West Virginia. This is always normally, it's just been a bad West Virginia team. TCU's always had trouble with them for years and years. Doing this for a long time. It's not been easy for TCU to go there. They just seem so much better right now. Can West Virginia get something going this week? This is a wait for me. I want to take them as dogs, but this just might not be the year. And I don't trust TCU's defense. I think it's better. We've talked about that, but I still don't think it's very good. But I don't know if West Virginia can take advantage of it.
Against the pass. Teams that can throw the ball could still move.
Yeah.
We're finding that out. Yeah. The question is, I don't know if West Virginia is one of those teams. All right, next up, we've got Syracuse and Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, 17.5-point home favorites, 55 the total. This is a pass for me from a side perspective. This is probably a pass for me overall. Georgia Tech, no thanks. Right away, I just don't get involved when they're laying this kind of a number. Long term, they haven't been great on laying this kind of number, but they've been great as a dog, and they showed it again versus Duke last week. Very nice win for Georgia Tech.
Oh, big. They got outplayed, too.
They did.
That first half, yeah, crazy.
They did, but they find a way. They muck up the game. They show mental toughness. They've got clearly have physical toughness, led by their quarterback, who's has got all the guts in the world in Haynes King. But you're right, they kind of got away with one. But like I said, they came up with key stops when they needed it. Got the 27-18 win there, even though Duke threw for 373 passing yards from Mensa. But unfortunately they had a lost fumble, bogged down, at times when they had opportunities to score. I thought the Duke defense did a decent job against the Georgia Tech offense. But at the end of the day, they still ended up having a pretty solid day on the ground. Haynes King running it for 120, throwing it for 205. A pretty good balance. He's like an MVP. If there's an MVP award in college football, Haynes King has to be in consideration. You take him and his passing and his rushing yards off the Georgia Tech team last week against Duke, and it could be a totally different story. He's the heartbeat of this Yellow Jackets team. There's no question. But coming off a win like that, now you're laying a big... Here's the problem, though. Syracuse, Ricky Collins is awful. And I took the over with Pitt and Syracuse, saying he's off a bye week. It's a chance maybe to get settled in, comfortable, and he still sucked every bit as much as he did before. The bye week against a Pitt defense that really isn't even that great, and he still couldn't move the football enough. So I got to lean under. Georgia Tech's going to run. It's going to churn the clock. Syracuse offense is still dead as a doornail since Steve Angeli went down with that injury. How does this go over the total? I don't see it. I'd lean under, and I just can't take Syracuse, though. I think because this could be because the Syracuse offense did not move the ball at home off a bye week against Pitt. How are you going to move it here?
And their defense hung in a little bit, though.
Against
Pitt.
And a guy who would be playing well. So I lean under here. The problem with taking Syracuse and all these points is I could see this being 31-7 for Georgia Tech. Where they cover, but it still stays under. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, when I saw this after watching Collins, it does seem somewhat of a flat spot where we don't want to take Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
Normally, we talk about all the time laying these numbers. So I don't know if I'm there, but I think you're right. I don't think Collins. I did look at Syracuse's team total under. Georgia Tech's defense still pretty good. It got better, but I have to say, in that game, shout out to my guy G in the chat, Guillermo Zertucci. Everyone here, Robert, there's my guy, Old E. I got to see him last night on screen. Shout out to my dude. Adam, as always. Nick, everyone in here, appreciate PlayStation. Hit the like button, guys. That's all we ask for. Thanks for joining us here. Getting into it, week 9. That first half, and the only points Georgia Tech had was the fumble.
Yep.
The fumble in the end zone. they dominated, and it was 7-7. If they don't have that, it would have been 7-0. I mean, it was like 200 yards, nothing. But in the second half, Georgia Tech ran it a bit, and Duke just couldn't get it done. They had the fumble, like you talked about, some penalties, missed field goal. It seems like that's happened a lot with Duke. Just errors or just downs. They go down and go for it. They couldn't get it done and even the yardage in the end, I think they still got them by 100 yards in that game. So, yeah, I look at Syracuse team total. Collins, on the other hand, I was like, wow, the Syracuse defense is playing. This guy can't do anything, and he had 3 more picks. Just, that was, yeah.
Yeah, I've given up on Ricky Collins, our guy there. I've given up.
Dude, I know this guy, I mean, some talent. Like we all talk, like it's not been easy at all. He has not looked good so far. So I look Syracuse team total under. So further notice.
All right.
Maybe in first half even, because they have gotten a couple junk touchdowns in a few of these games. The week before that against SMU when they backdoored.
All right, big noon kickoff on Saturday. This is the Fox game to get the day started. UCLA and Indiana. We've got Indiana 24.5-point home favorites, 54 the total. This is a tricky one. I mean, Indiana's a difficult team to bet on or against because, their numbers are always so inflated. But, Kurt Cignetti and this team takes the field with the mindset of we're going to try to run it up if possible. And they attempted to do that against Michigan State, but then what a crazy ending. Indiana kicks a field goal to get them the point spread cover with 1:56 left. And I know Jonathan Smith knew the point spread, had to, because Michigan State down 38-10 with Indiana as 27.5-point favorites covering at that moment. Michigan State goes down the field, gets in field goal position, and kicks the point spread covering field goal with 33 seconds to go to make it 38-13. Michigan State covers the number. Don't tell me Jonathan Smith didn't know the point spread. Don't tell me Michigan State didn't know the point spread. Don't tell me Aiden Childs didn't know the point spread. And this is a guy that said bet the over in one of his speeches last year to the media. He doesn't know what the lines are.
Check his accounts.
Yeah. That was hilarious. That's clearly a guy playing to make the boosters happy toward the end of that game there for Michigan State. Cash their betting tickets in that game on the Spartans. But Spartans get the money with that 38-13 loss to Indiana. Indiana falls short, but still, it's not the easiest team to want to fade because Indiana was trying to cover the number because they kicked the field goal right before that. So, and here's the thing with the UCLA. I'll take it because I had UCLA money line in that game. I'll take it. But I was worried that after the monster upsets, right, Penn State, the upset against
played out kind of how I thought. Yeah, they have 3-point.
Yeah,
right. No wonder he took the money.
Finally, reading the press, but they still found a way. They're still playing. Their defense has gotten a lot better. I will say that. And obviously, Nico Iamaleava, since Jerry Neuheisel, by the way, is going to be the new coach. I mean, I don't think they're going to go in any direction but Jerry Neuheisel. I see some of these post-game speeches. He's clearly, the kids are rallying around him. He's going to be the guy, I think, to be the head coach starting next season. But he's done
when he's getting all the love, not the actual intern.
Not Tim Skipper. Tim Skipper.
Skipper.
Jerry is getting all the praise for the turnaround here for UCLA. UCLA is still, since the coaching changed, since Foster got ousted, they've covered every number or pushed, depending on what you got against Maryland last week. Not easy to lay this many against UCLA. And I'm concerned about 9 a.m. Pacific local start for a road game. But UCLA, off the Penn State win, went to Michigan State. They fucking dummied Michigan State in an early start game. So at this number, I lean to the Bruins, believe it or not. But I don't know. I feel like there's better things to do than fade Kurt Cignetti in Indiana. And they want, if they have the chance to punch in a late touchdown, if they're up 21, this is the kind of team that will do it. So it's a real tricky game. I think if you ask me if I had to bet this game at the current number, I'd lean slightly to the dog. What do you think here, C-Mac, UCLA, Indiana?
That's how I feel. Do I want to go against Cignetti really at home? But I'm tempted here with these points.
Number. And UCLA is playing with great, great effort, great desire, great resilience now all of a sudden.
I worry about Nico having a bad game.
Yes.
But like a horrible turnover. If he doesn't, which won't be easy, this Indiana defense is for real. That's kind of another big thing here. Like they got the late field goal like you talked about, kind of giving it to them. It seems like UCLA, you can even look at their team total under, I think, in this game. I don't, are they going to get more than a couple touchdowns? If they do, I think they cover. Unless Indiana scores 63, against Illinois, something crazy. So yeah, man, UCLA.
Indiana went to the Rose Bowl last year and beat this team, and I remember.
Oh, they kicked their ass. I remember
the field goal with Indiana on the road in that game, 42-13. 3.5-point road favorites at UCLA last year. 3.5-point road favorites, and now here they are, 24.5-point favorites. Now, look at the difference.
I know. Look what's happened, and this is after craziness of being the worst, losing to New Mexico, all these teams, UCLA, and then now swing back and won 3 straight. So, yeah, as of now, it's a lean here at UCLA points.
The value is definitely
or their team total
UCLA. Yeah, the value in the point spread spectrum here is definitely on UCLA, but it's just do you really want to go heads up against Cignetti, the Hoosiers, Mendoza?
Yeah, early start. Yeah, that defense.
I'm not sure I will. I lean UCLA. I don't know if I'll get there, though, in the end. All right, Boston College, Louisville. Louisville, 25.5-point home favorites, 55 the total. One of my bets, I liked it quite a bit, was UConn last week against this fading Boston College team, and UConn ended up getting it done 38-20. This defense is horrible, man. I would just say, here's the only concern I have.
So
Louisville beating Miami, is this a hangover? Is this a letdown?
Yeah.
Off the mammoth upset. And here's Cristobal again. Cristobal things, losing that game that he has no business losing. And here's Louisville beating them as a double-digit underdog last week. That's my only.
By the way, Cristobal, huge favorite like that. And it finally came, the defense had played so well, but they were definitely out partying or something. They were asleep.
Yeah.
Like Louisville jumped all over. Like the defense played better as that game
That was all coaching. They jumped on
Beck was horrible.
My week.
Yeah, they jumped on him. Yeah.
Brom just a total out coaching of Cristobal. Not that we should be shocked by that, because Brom's a better coach than Cristobal anyway. But like I said, not shocked at all by that. Here's the thing with this game. That's the only thing that could possibly keep me off Louisville as a potential letdown. And even then, I think they could score at will here against this Boston College. That's how bad BC has become defensively here this season. I mean, 38 to UConn, 41 to Clemson, 48 to Pitt, 30 to Stanford, Michigan State, 42. They're not stopping anything right now defensively. So I know it's not the greatest spot for Louisville, but the only bet I could consider in this game is still Louisville over 39.5, their team total, because I really do think they could probably still get into the 40s here with what we're seeing from this BC defense. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I was thinking that.
The money's come in on Louisville, too. So people really think that poorly right now of Boston College.
I know. I think they could. Like, that's where I'd have to be here. Is this Louisville team total, even after the big win? I mean, there's just been no showing here from BC. The offense is horrible. The defense.
I will say the quarterback changed to Grayson James last week.
I thought they should have done that a long time ago.
Better than Lonergan. Lonergan was making too many mistakes. Yep.
For sure. And I'm shocked they didn't do that earlier, because I thought James looked pretty good last year. And it took this long. I still think he's the better. Now, I don't know if it really, really matters. Is this, maybe early in BC? I just haven't done anything. So, yeah, it'd be the team total here for Louisville. Moss was good in that game, efficient. So, yeah, shout out to Louisville. Bell. I mean, this guy is super great in that game. Another big game, couple touchdowns. How can you not look at him? For looking at props.
All right, Stanford, Miami. Speaking of Miami, 30.5-point home favorites in bounce back mode against Stanford. 47.5 the total. I'm not laying 30.5. I couldn't. No, I'm just not doing that. I know maybe they could come in here and whip and pound the Stanford team. It's certainly possible. Stanford, how about them? Frank Reich, Andrew Luck, big win against Florida State. Now, Florida State's not Miami, but still, that's a nice win for them. Galbraith's done enough. It's not lighting it up on offense, but he's done enough. I was impressed with the defense, though. Like, really made
a little bit. They made enough plays because they got outgained a ton of stuff. But yeah, They made it. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was watching it.
Controversial finish. Did he get in? Did he not get in on the final play? But they ruled that he didn't, and that Stanford is able to hang on for the win. So, now you're going cross country, big win, much better team on paper, talent wise. Not a great spot for Stanford, but I cannot lay this many. Even if Miami is focused and plays much better, I can't lay this many points with Mario Cristobal. I just can't do it. Probably not a game I get involved in, but I'd actually lean Stanford. I can't lay this many points with Miami under any circumstances. C-Mac, what do you think? And by the way, bad Carson Beck finally showed up last week. That was a terrible game from him.
Oh, I know. I talked about it. It was coming. It was coming. We've watched him way too long. That in a big game, it was, and he had kind of had not the best of games, but a couple big. But the defense played well. They were able to do enough. I think it was Florida where he had a couple picks. But I mean, yeah, the old Beckham 4 picks just did not look good. Yeah, if I looked at this game, I think this is kind of a beatdown here for Miami in this game, or even a Stanford team total under. Yeah. It's not going to be much in this game. Right?
That's the thing. I don't know if Stanford's going up and down the field here. Miami's defense still played okay, even though they lost to Louisville last week.
And Goldberg said Brown had he played too, of course, in that game. And Stanford has a couple of receivers that I think are pretty good if they could get him the ball a little bit more. But they ran it all right, decent against Florida State in that game. I wanted to think, too, Florida State, this was another 13 penalties in that game. Like, watching it was just, because they still outgained like crazy, I think, to Stanford in that one. But Stanford does enough, gets the one, the crazy, crazy finish. But yeah, it seems like a good bounce back here for me, but I'm not laying this many. Maybe the Stanford team total, but I doubt I bet this here.
All right, Michigan and Michigan State. We've got Michigan 14-point road favorites, 48.5 the total here in this game. Obviously, we got this rivalry scenario, as it often is with these two teams in state. You've got Michigan, obviously, coming off a pretty impressive win against Washington at home, 24-7. Now, Washington was playing an early start game, not optimal for them, but you got to give the defense credit. They played very well. They got the run game going, too. Jordan Marshall was good on the ground. Bryce Underwood, very efficient, no mistakes. That's what you want to see. They put the clamps down on Jonah Coleman in the run game. He didn't get anything going. Everything they got was DeMond Williams through the air, so it was a very good, complete effort from Michigan in that game. But now they go on the road where they've been, you look at these road games, they lost straight up in ATS to Oklahoma, to USC. They barely beat Nebraska by 3. So going on the road and asking to win by more than 2 touchdowns, it's a little bit different. Can you trust Michigan State's the question. They've lost 4 in a row. All 4 of those losses by double digits to USC, Nebraska, UCLA, and Indiana. Pretty tough schedule for Michigan State during that span. Last year at the Big House, Michigan won 24-17. Was a pretty competitive game. 2 years ago here at East Lansing, it was Michigan 49-0. Michigan's won and covered 3 straight between these two teams. I normally like Jonathan Davis as Jonathan Smith, I should say, as a double-digit dog when it's all said and done. I kind of want to back the Spartans here, but will I is the big question. One note I want to point out here, though, for Michigan going into this game is that after this game, they've got a light schedule ahead, so there's no look ahead. They got Purdue, Northwestern, and Maryland coming up after this Michigan. So all their attention should be on Michigan State. Tough game, but I'm leaning dog. Just do enough to hang around here. I'm not there yet with asking Bryce Underwood in this Michigan, especially their offense, to be able to win by more than 2 touchdowns on the road. C-Mac, what do you think here? Wolverine Spartans.
Michigan looked really good this last week. The defense was good, forced 3 picks to Williams, which is a pretty good offense, that Washington. I mean, it's always the tough travel. We were talking about it. It just wasn't going to be easy. And I dominated the line of scrimmage almost 38 minutes to 22. They ran it
this out there, C-Mac, about Michigan State. They are 0-4 against the spread as a favorite this year. 3-0 against the spread, all of them as a double-digit dog. 3-0 against the spread as a double-digit dog. Haven't covered as a favorite, Michigan State, but they're 3-0 ATS as a double-digit dog.
Yes, the SC, they got in, of course, Nebraska. And then last week, as we got into the kick.
End. Yeah, hey, it covers the cover. Kick. It's a W.
Yeah.
It was the last-second field goal.
Exactly. Michigan's just a lot better here. One thing, I want to touch on the total. Like, when I see this, it's not enough. I want the under, but this needs to be a little bit higher. To move. Michigan State's defense has been that bad. They've been just going over. Michigan State's been over team. That UCLA game stayed under because they couldn't score. I mean, 38-13, it stayed under the 52. Everything else here, dating back to last year, they've just been an over team as Michigan State. So, yeah, I couldn't touch the total because Michigan they're not going to be flashy and going up and down in this game, but they might get 28 in this game or 30 on their own. Yeah, goddamn Michigan State. I don't know if I could take Childs here in this defense. I want to look at it a little longer. Maybe Michigan's rounding into form. Are you on mute?
No, I'm ready. Here we go. Virginia, North Carolina. Virginia, 10-point road favorites, 51.5 the total. Virginia, not pretty, off a bye week, and gosh, 15.5-point favorites against Washington State and barely win the football game. It was a uncharacteristic struggle for the offense, which had been just rolling early in the year for Virginia, but they barely cracked 300 total yards. Morris, a very ineffective 15 for 25, inefficient, I should say. Jamari Taylor couldn't get anything going on the ground. I think maybe this speaks volumes more about Washington State because that's 2 weeks in a row, Washington State, Ole Miss, and Virginia. They've been right there in both of those games. So maybe Washington State is just improving as a football team quicker than we thought. Not a pretty performance from Virginia. Chapel Bill, on the other hand, in North Carolina, I think it was more California playing poorly than North Carolina playing well as to why that game was close. I still don't think North Carolina was that great. The Sagapolutelli was kind of off the mark, a lot of drop passes. They did stop the run pretty well, so that's the one positive for North Carolina. But the offense,
Cal can't run.
No, that's the anyway. I'll say this: they threw Gio Lopez was a little bit better. I think they have a decent receiver. They found someone in this Kobe Paysour who had a pretty good game for North Carolina against Cal. But this is still, to me, a pretty rough North Carolina team, not one I trust. I actually think Virginia, after the scare against Washington State, plays better here. I don't know about laying 10, but I lean road favorite and laying it. Slay it or don't play it for me. I'm still not there with back in North Carolina. I don't think that was a sign of, they're getting better. I got to see a lot more. I thought Cal was just shooting themselves in the foot over and over in that football game. So I lean UVA here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I think they play better. We'll see with North Carolina. I mean, they have some of the athletes, the money. I mean, they're just not very good still defensively. And it's Cal. They can't run it. They have their own, the receiver drops like you talked about. Their defense is still pretty good, but Lopez back in, he played okay. I mean, just a heartbreak. The fumble, though, was just so bad for North Carolina. Going into the end zone just ends the game after that for them. Now you got to come back here. I think instead of laying the 10, I think Virginia gets to 30. This team total's at 30, I believe, right? 30.5?
It's right around that, yes.
Yes, I was looking at it. I think they get that. I still don't like this UNC defense. I don't think it's very good. Bill and his son need to do a little bit more. And can this football team play better here at home? I don't know. Like, as we look it up, too, Virginia, 203 on the ground, 17th. UNC, they gave up 120. It's not horrible, 68th. But passing, Virginia, too, 260. And 130th is this. They've been bad. The back end's been bad here. The corners and safeties for North Carolina, 130th in the country. So give me Virginia here. Team total over.
Yeah, that might be a better route if you like Virginia. Someone on a radio show a month or two ago said this about Bill Belichick and his hiring procedures, and it's so true. It made me crack up when I heard it. The only people he ever hires on his coaching staff are his cronies, his kids, and kids of cronies.
Yes.
It's true.
Yeah.
His kids, his cronies, as in his buddies, and kids of buddies of his. That's about it. Yeah, that's how he hires.
Oh yeah.
That's it. Oh man, not necessarily always the best people for the job. Just cronies, kids, and kids of cronies. All right, NC State and Pitt. We've got Pitt 7-point home favorites, 58.5 the total here in this game. I like points here. It was definitely a step back for Mason Heinschel. We were getting all enamored with the way he ripped apart BC and the way he went up and down against Florida State's defense, but a little bit of a back down to earth last week against Syracuse. The Pittsburgh's offense had to grind a little bit more in that game, struggled a bit more, but I still like overall what I saw. And they still got to 30 points. They did get it going really late in the fourth quarter, and he still, 143 through the air in that game. Like I said, it was definitely more of a struggle, yet they still got 30 points, and this Pitt offense still continues to play well. NC State off a bye week here, following the 36-7 loss to Notre Dame. So they'll be looking to bounce back. They didn't cover as a dog against Notre Dame, but, this offense with C.J. Bailey, I like the way he's played, obviously, for them. Pitt defense, I know they shut down Syracuse, but it's a Pitt defense that before that gave up points to Florida State, gave up points to Louisville. Even West Virginia put up 31 points. Against Pitt earlier this year. So I like over 58.5. I think it's a high-scoring game. Both Pitt will play fast. NC State is, from start to finish this year, NC State's been better offensively than defensively. Their defense really can't stop many people. So I think it's an over game. I lean to the dog, though, NC State. The one thing about NC State, their defense is not good, but Bailey and the offense can move the ball. They can get through the back door even if they fall behind. And Narduzzi long-term, not a good, bigger favorite. And you have NC State off a bye week, which is a nice little spot for them. So it's probably underdog, NC State, and over for me in this game. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, on the total, I lean over. I still think there's going to be points. I just don't know if it gets over. I'm on NC State here, off the bye, kind of losing 2 out of the last 3. They had Campbell in between their defense, but they still have an offense. Bailey was horrible in that Notre Dame game. Maybe they didn't have a ton more points, but they would have had more there. And Pitt riding high, 3 straight covers. Syracuse, the Florida State, good win. They beat them, but Syracuse could have done anything, Collins. I think that game is tight. So big win there. Now they come back home. So give me NC State here with the touchdown.
All right, next up.
This is tight.
Yeah, I agree. NC State worth a look here off the bye. I just don't trust Pitt as that kind of a favorite. Rutgers and Purdue. We've got Rutgers 2.5-point road favorites, 58.5 the total. I'll keep this brief. I've already bet it over 58.5. Over with Rutgers. They can't stop anybody. Purdue back home. Now, look, the offense got shut out by Northwestern. You think, what the hell happened to Purdue's offense? Yeah, they didn't play well. They stunk. Ryan Brown and the offense struggled. They couldn't get much going. That weather was terrible for offense in that game. It was windy as hell down by the lake there on Northwestern's campus. It was not optimal conditions for moving the football. The weather should be a lot better here. Let me just get a quick weather check here for Purdue on Saturday as of now. It looks like, no rain, not going to be much rain, any rain, and the wind is light. So the weather should be fine. Purdue will get back on track here. Let's not forget they were moving the ball, putting up points before that game against Northwestern. I think they get Rutgers defense. Like I said, they just can't stop anybody. But Purdue's defense is still pretty rough. They haven't been great. Obviously, last week they played better, but that was wind conditions and Northwestern's offense, which is not exactly explosive. Rutgers can move the football a little bit here. So, this is one of the first bets I made, over 58.5. Every Rutgers game except one has gone over the total, and the one that stayed under should have went over the total. Kaliak-Manis threw a red zone end zone interception against Washington, or else that game would have went over the total too. So over 58.5 for me here. What do you think here, Rutgers-Purdue?
Yeah, there will be no Brown, I don't think. He's doubtful. I was looking at this list last night. So Singleton's in. He should be all right against this Rutgers defense.
Maybe he'll protect the ball better than Ryan Brown.
Well, I mean, Purdue, they were awful.
Yeah.
Just dreadful. Northwestern, though, good defense. We talked about that game
Yeah, that's right.
way under
Malachi
Stone.
Singleton, and that's another part of why they struggled against Northwestern. He needs some seasoning, obviously.
Yeah, but this was he should here at home though against the Rutgers defense. It can't really stop a nosebleed.
Yeah,
and
I think he'll play a lot better here, Singleton. I agree. Yeah,
yeah, I think he will. Rutgers, and they just got. We talked about how Oregon was probably going to be pissed and run it up, and they did. So, but Cadillac Madness, this team, as bad as the defense is, this offense can score. So we're just starting to get higher numbers than we were. Of course, that's going to happen, but I think you might be right. It still can get over here.
All right, next up we've got SMU Wake Forest. SMU 3.5-point road favorites, 54.5 the total. Big win against Clemson for SMU. Now, no Cade Klubnik in that game. That certainly aided the cause just a little bit for SMU, but still a good win for them against the Tigers in Death Valley. Now they'll take on a Wake Forest team that slowly but surely Wake Forest and Jake Dickert. I said this when they hired him. I thought they made a pretty solid hire because I thought he did a nice job there at Washington State. Tough spot to coach. And, he did a nice job with that program competitive. Got them, I think, to improve as time went on. But now you look at Wake Forest, 3 straight covers. Took Georgia Tech, a very good Georgia Tech team, to overtime. Should have won that game, honestly. But Georgia Tech nipped them. They beat Virginia Tech outright as a dog, 30-23. They pound Oregon State. They're off a bye week, too. Extra time to prepare. Do I lean Wake? Plus 3.5? I mean, I'm kind of interested in them as a slight home dog here. And I know SMU's probably still the better of these two teams. And obviously they are 5-2 on the season. The only losses to Baylor and to TCU. Although it is worth noting that, like I said, road favorite for this SMU team. They've only been a road favorite once, and it was that Missouri State game, and they weren't even close to covering the number in that game. So I don't know. I'm still a little bit leery of laying points with SMU on the road, and Wake's off a bye, and Wake has been improving, I think, including Robbie Ashford, their quarterback, who I can no longer criticize for not being able to throw the football. He's been solid, although it was Deshaun Purdy the last time we saw Wake Forest in action. So keep an eye on the situation here as to who's going to play, because Robbie Ashford is on the injury list with the thumb injury. And that's why Deshaun Purdy got the start against Oregon State. But Robbie Ashford had been playing well. The fact that it's a bye week going into this game might give Ashford the chance to return from that injury. So we'll see, but I'm kind of leaning Wake off the bye here as a home dog, and maybe SMU in a tricky spot after beating Clemson last week. What do you think here, CMAC, SMU, Wake Forest?
I think I'm going to have to take this. It's just the best first half team in all college football has been Wake.
Yeah.
Like this, when I was going through it last night,
yep.
I'm like, even the smaller games at Western Carolina, not except for the first one, but after that,
and the Georgia Tech, the games they lost, Georgia Tech and NC State, they were still great in the first half. Yeah.
First half, really, really good. And then they get the wins versus Virginia Tech, Oregon State program, and just, wow.
That might be a better bet that maybe, because if SMU's is a bit flat after the Clemson win, it's more than likely going to show up early, and then maybe they shake it off and they come back, which has been the pattern with some of these Wake games. So I'm with you. First half might be the better option with Wake. I
think you take the 1.5 here. Like the money line is good, but just in case we have a tie game, the first half. But it's been like when I was going through the numbers, just how dominant they've been early on in these games. And we'll see who's playing quarterback. I mean, he did good enough. I wouldn't say it's that bad. He was only 50%, but he's threw 270 and 4 touchdowns. So, and they're off the bye is Wake. So I just love the spot for them to come out hot. Best first half team in college football. Wake.
All right, next up, Ole Miss, Oklahoma. Oklahoma 4.5 point home favorites, 52.5, 53. The total here in this game across the board. Against South Carolina, he definitely looked a lot better last week, John Mateer. Looked a little bit healthier, certainly, than he was in the Red River rivalry against Texas. And that was a pretty solid performance overall by the Sooners in that game, taking care of business. Their defense was absolutely suffocating, dominant in that game over South Carolina as well. 26-7 win. So nice showing there for the Sooners and both sides of the ball overall, which was good to see. They got Torrey Blaylock going on the ground as well, which was nice. And like I said, for Lenore Sellers, it was rough for him. He couldn't get anything going. They couldn't run the football at all. And that Oklahoma defense, man, Brent Venables has that defense flying around. And that's certainly a good sign. I don't trust Ole Miss here. They're coming off the loss against Georgia. Couldn't stop a nosebleed when it mattered. And they had been on the field a long time. I heard Chris and Kirk Herbstreit kind of giving excuses for Ole Miss's defense. There's still not a great performance. I know they were tired at the end, but you need one stop, and they just couldn't get it versus Georgia, because you got to give Trinidad Chambliss credit. That offense was really good. Impressive. What a great
I was surprised by the
Georgia had no answers for him. But at the end of the day, all Georgia, and Kirby Smart, that's why he's a great coach. He probably tells his team, look, guys, your defense hasn't stopped him all day, but all you need is one stop, because they can't stop us. We get one stop on this guy, we're going to win the football game. That's exactly what happened. Georgia got the one or two stops to win the game. Ole Miss could not get those stops. And now you got Lane Kiffin again coming off that kind of a game, grueling, physical, emotional, all that. And now you got to go on the road again for the second straight week against Oklahoma. We're going to play a physical, tough. I'm laying it with Oklahoma. I think there's a massive difference between these two teams defensively. Oklahoma is the much, much, much better defensive team. I think they get it done by a touchdown here. Give me Oklahoma. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't mind that too. I talk about how they don't get it done. Lane Kiffin, just in the end, it just doesn't cover. In a big game, we talk about it on here all the time. I can't take him, so I don't mind it. The two games here, and it's kind of skewed the numbers that I think this Ole Miss, the Georgia game that just happened, and the Arkansas game where we had a bunch of points back and forth. That one, 41-35. Because I think their defense is pretty good, Ole Miss, a little bit at times. And this is, Ohio State to me has the best defense. I've been taking their unders, or whoever they're playing, their team total under. I got to take the under here. I just do. And when I go through it, Oklahoma, of course, with Batir, looked better. But their secondary for Ole Miss has been pretty good, holding teams under 200 yards a game. They've given it up on the ground a bit, has Ole Miss, and especially in a couple of these big games, the high-scoring ones, 166. So, but I think Oklahoma dictates the pace. One of the bets I didn't take was that under, was South Carolina team total under. I was just kicking myself this week because all these other defenses, like we talked about last week, Texas, Ohio State, if you did that, they all went under. So, yeah, under here, or just Ole Miss has been able to score crazy. I kind of almost look at their team total under in this game, but they've got to do some. The offense can move the ball. I can't give it to them. That game against Georgia with a pretty good defense, not the Georgia defense of old, but still a pretty good defense. It was good, but I'm just looking at under here. I don't mind Oklahoma, too.
I'm at the point where I'm ready to say Oklahoma's got a better defense than Georgia. I'm at that point.
I think so.
I'm at that point.
I don't think Georgia's I think they're all right, but definitely not.
That's why I think this is going to be. This could be the game. We expected a struggle finally from Chambliss last week. This is the game I think he could struggle. That physical,
a couple turnovers,
road second straight week. So I like the Sooners there as a small home favorite. All right, Northwestern, Nebraska. Nebraska 7-point home favorites, 44 the total in this game. So probably can figure what I like here in this game. We cashed a ticket with Michigan State as a double-digit dog at Nebraska a few weeks ago. It was an ugly game, but Michigan State was right there to win it. And they end up still covering the number in defeat. Cashed a ticket with Minnesota last Friday night against Nebraska, saying Nebraska can't be trusted as favorites, especially a touchdown or more. And Minnesota just wire to wire, controlled that game, won outright. Dylan Raiola and the offense struggled, couldn't get anything going. And now Nebraska and remember, they barely beat Maryland and easily could have lost that game and didn't cover when they were, 7.5 point road favorites at Maryland. They only won by 3. So here's Nebraska, bad favorite, not playing. They seem to be playing worse and worse every week. Raiola's not been consistent. Defense has been gashed a little bit more the last few weeks. I don't want to say Northwestern is back, but they're playing better again, Northwestern. They had those, that rough start to the year. The Tulane game was a bad one, but Preston Stone's playing better now than he did early in the season. They're getting some confidence. They beat the hell out of ULM. They beat UCLA. They beat, blowout win over UL Monroe. The upset win against Penn State. Nice shutout win against Purdue, 19-0. Defense getting a little bit better. I'm on Northwestern here. Nebraska's kind of going downhill. They've not been good as a favorite. They've been a terrible favorite in recent weeks. I think we got a one-score game here at the very least. Give me Northwestern here, +7 against Nebraska. The money's come in on Northwestern early in the week, 7.5 down to 7. I agree with that. I think it's I don't trust what I'm seeing out of Nebraska right now. So I think we have ourselves a competitive game there in that one. All right, we'll get C-Mac's thoughts on that game when he returns. In the meantime, we'll move along to Auburn and Arkansas. We've got Auburn 1.5 point road favorites total here, sitting at 57.5 across the board. I'm on the Razorbacks here as a slight home underdog. I think that loss against Missouri, brutal in overtime for Auburn and for Hugh Freeze. That's the straw that breaks the camel's back. I really worry about the psyche of this Auburn team coming off that loss, another gut-wrenching loss. You're still winless in conference play, and now you're going on the road to face an Arkansas team that, look, they haven't won since Bobby Petrino took over as interim coach after they fired Pittman, but you like the effort and you like the spirit. They gave Tennessee a real tough game, first game after the coaching change, and look at the way they played. Now, they still don't stop anybody on defense, unfortunately, but the offense and Talon Green, they've done their job and gave A&M everything they could handle last week, and covered the number pretty much start to finish in that game. A&M could never gain separation from Arkansas last week. And again, I just worry that Auburn hits the wall mentally. How many brutal losses can you take? You're about to put Georgia away, and that fumble at the goal line that they ruled was a fumble, not a touchdown, controversial call. You end up losing that game. Georgia whips you in the second half. And then you battle it out last week against Missouri, and you find a way to lose again in overtime. How much do you have left in the tank for Auburn? How many times can you get up off the mat from these terrible losses? This could be the spot where they just hit the wall. So I like Arkansas here. Lean over as well, but I like Arkansas here. C-Mac, before we get to that, we'll go back to Northwestern Nebraska. What do you think there?
Just skip it. You know where I'm at. Northwest. No way.
Yeah.
Nebraska probably wins this game. Shit.
Right, field goal. Yeah.
That was yes.
Yeah.
We've gone over this again and again. The line is wrong. And two good defenses this game.
Yeah.
Could stay under this total, even there. Minnesota and all their struggles. It just still last week, it was like it just was kind of repetitive.
And I'm sick of hearing about Dylan Raiola. This guy is not a big-time quarterback.
Oh, God. Shit. Exactly.
That where the sun don't shine, that kind of an opinion on Dylan Raiola. Not a big-time quarterback. Nope.
Definitely. Yeah, this game should be good. I like Arkansas here. They can't stop anything. Last week, this was one of the late ads for me. It was Auburn. I knew I was getting myself into with this team, and they couldn't score. I thought being at home, Missouri's first road game, but it was the same old struggles. Can't make a field goal down in the red zone. Can't score touchdowns. And they forced, some turnovers against Missouri. But man, that was a tough watch. I was like, it's like I wanted the pain, and I still did it, and I got it after that game. And I added that at the very end.
60% chance of rain here, by the way.
There's some rain, some wind, right?
Not so much wind, but rain. Yeah.
Okay, a little bit though. I noticed in this one. Yeah, Arkansas still can't stop. Auburn should be able to actually score touchdowns in this game. This is what it is. 17 Oklahoma. I thought that was a shock that they got there. 10, and of course 17. We just mentioned all the missed opportunities for them. So this is always good. I wanted to Usually, yeah, Arkansas 24-14. I just wanted to look at the game last year a little bit. I think Arkansas is playing better. The defense still is just not very good, but I like Green at quarterback, so I lean their way here.
All right, Minnesota, Iowa. We've got Iowa 8.5-point home favorites, 38.5 the total. This is a afternoon game in Iowa City.
Yeah, Ron.
Iowa with the win against Penn State, 25-24 last week. A thrilling finish. They got the touchdown in the last 4 minutes and found a way to win that game. Gronowski, only 68 passing yards, and he's had some better games lately. Last Saturday was one of them. They won in spite of what Gronowski did. But the good news is he ran it for 130 rushing yards, and his ability to run the football is what gave Iowa their biggest surge on offense, and their defense really made life difficult for the first-time starter, Ethan Grunkemeyer, for Penn State last week. We'll see how they fare here against Minnesota, coming off back-to-back wins against Purdue and Nebraska. We'll see how they fare here. Again, they've only played 2 road games. At Cal, they lost by 13, and they got blown out by Ohio State. So they've been pretty rough on the road, Minnesota, but do you trust Iowa in this kind of a point spread range? 8.5. I don't know if I do. And I know last year Iowa beat them 31-14 in Minnesota, but the yardage was Iowa was only plus 46 yards in total yards in that game. So kind of a misleading final score. The last time Minnesota played at Iowa 2 years ago, 12-10 Minnesota. That was that crazy game where it was low scoring and there was mostly a field goal fest, and Minnesota ended up pulling out a 12-10 win. I lean Gophers early in the week, plus 8.5. Not sure I'll play it, but definitely think it's a point spread range. I don't get to Iowa when they're being asked to lay almost 2 touchdowns. That's not the point spread range for me with the Hawkeyes. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, shout out to everyone in the chat. Some Solution. Ron Crawford, what's going on?
Drake Lindsey's better too, slowly but surely at quarterback for Minnesota. Slowly.
Yeah, well, I'll get to it real quick. Andrew, Sean Higgs, what up? What up? Great to see you. FB Gotti, everyone in here. Coffee Breakfast Picks, what's up? What's up?
Yep, appreciate all the people tuning in. Sean Higgs, good to see you as well. It's been a while.
Great to see you
appreciate
guys.
Everyone tuning in.
Minnesota all year long, and they have to do it. They haven't been able to run the ball. Really, which has been strange, and I don't know how they're going to run it here against this defense, this Iowa defense. By the way, it was a game we talked about. I mean, it was like the week before, and laying the 3, like to me, I was the only play or anything, but I just stayed away, and that kid threw 2 picks, but man, for Penn State, and they were still up by 10. And they were still down in the first half. Iowa, they got going like you talked about. How about the slide? He takes off. He could have took it to the house. They cover, so he just gets down, slides. That I like that. A heartbreak some people loved it, of course, if you had Penn State, and others didn't love it so much. But yeah, this price is it's too big for Iowa. If Minnesota can't run, that means they have to throw it. But they got to hang their hat on their defense here a little bit. This is a wait for me. Like I just can't. I'm not going to lay points with Iowa here, not with this low total. So I'm just looking at Minnesota. This is a wait for me. Later in the week, star here.
All right, we've got the Sunflower State showdown here. Kansas State, Kansas. Kansas 3-point home favorites, 56.5 the total here in this game. And shout out to Ron Crawford. Thank you for there we go. One of our favorites, Ron Crawford.
Yes.
Thank you for being a member. Thanks for joining us here. As always, appreciate that very much.
One of my favorites.
Good stuff. All right, as far as this game goes, my first thought is long term, and I mean this goes back a really long time. Kansas has had no success against Kansas State. It's crazy. And this goes back to Bill Snyder, when years and years ago, Bill Snyder would kick Kansas ass every single year when he was coach of this team.
Yeah.
Year in it. Like, this is unbelievable. Like, this is just Kansas State dominance over Kansas. 10-0 straight up. Now, only 5-5 against the spread, but Kansas State's been big favorites in a lot of these games. Now they're actually a slight underdog. Just based on series history alone, I can't get there with Kansas here, laying 3. I can't. They've been dominated. They've been treated like a human pinata by Kansas State for not just years, decades. Like, it's been decades of Kansas State just whipping on Kansas. Now, I get it. This year, Kansas has a pretty good team. These teams are much closer to even. Kansas State's had a disappointing season so far, especially early, but Kansas State's starting to turn the corner. They had the bad loss to Iowa State, to Army. They almost lost to North Dakota. They lost to Arizona. They had the bye week, and they're 3-0 against the spread since the bye week for Chris Kleiman. They beat UCF by 14. They lost to Baylor, but covered the number in defeat. And then they beat TCU 41-28 in their last game. Both teams off a bye, so there's no advantage there. I can only look at Kansas State here. They're 3-0 against the spread since their last bye week. They're playing better football. They've owned this series, and they're an underdog. So just based on the series history, it's +3 or nothing here for Kansas State. And as always with Kansas State, we don't love Avery Johnson necessarily. Can they run the football here in this game? And when you look at the run game and the run defense here for Kansas, hasn't been great lately. They've given up 5 yards per carry, 188 per game on the ground. That's not what I want to see when you've got to go up against a very, very capable back like Dylan Edwards here for Kansas State in this game, although he is questionable. So keep an eye on his status. He's been in and out with injuries this year. We'll see if he plays.
Yeah, they don't need him.
And the other running backs can step up if he doesn't play. But, yeah, this is Kansas State or nothing for me. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yes, I'm on K-State. Take the few points. They went outright here. Money line.
Kansas.
Yeah, and I'm a huge Johnson fan. Yeah, this is a little bit of a different team to start the year, I think. And just a bad spot. They playing a little bit better. They get these wins. Then they get the bye. I'm shocked a little bit that this was the number, too. I thought it could be like a pick 'em in this one. I know Kansas. I'm sure they want to beat them here at Kansas. But their defense still is not good. I mean, they are at home. You talked about it. I don't trust this defense at all. And I really don't trust. I don't trust both these quarterbacks, so that could be key, of course, in this game. But I think K-State just the better team off the bye here. Yep. Take the 3, but then they win money line.
All right, Colorado, Utah. We stay in the Big 12 here. Utah, 13.5-point home favorites, 51 the total in this game. Disappointing performance from Utah in the Holy War last week, falling short to BYU in that game by a score of 24-21. Back and forth game it went, but Dampier was 244 through the air, 2 touchdowns. Did have the 1 interception though in that game. I think what was impressive for me was the fact that L.J. Martin was able to run the ball for 122 for BYU. Bachmeier, not a huge game in the passing game, numbers wise, but 166 through the air, didn't make too many mistakes. Found some targets. Chase Roberts, who's been here forever, of course, and Parker Kingston, 2 pretty good receivers here for BYU. And like I said, tough game, but BYU ends up victorious. Utah back home, and we know how tough they can be at home. They beat up Arizona State, but that was with Jeff Sims at quarterback. So be careful reading too much into the 42-10 beatdown over Arizona State. Colorado's off a bye, which followed a 24-17 home win against Iowa State. And Deion's team had some injuries going into that bye week. So here's a chance for them to get healthy a little bit. Money's come in on Colorado. This was 14.5, 14. It's 13.5 now. Looks like Caden Salter's good to go. Utah coming off that loss to BYU, and they are good at home historically. Don't know, though, if I'd want to lay this many points with them. And it's worth noting, since Deion's arrived on the scene here, last 2 years, Colorado won last year at home 49-24, although Utah was falling apart by then. But 2 years ago here at Utah, Colorado only lost by 6 as a 3-touchdown underdog here in Salt Lake City. So people betting Colorado here early in the week, and I kind of can see why. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I can see why, especially you got over the 2 touchdowns, and this is why it's come down a little bit, 13.5, 13. I like the bounce back for Utah. This Colorado defense I still don't think is very good, but they've played all right at times. We talked about it. They've dealt with some injuries. And I mentioned too, I think the Utah offense has been hitting. It seems like a good spot. When I look at it, the team total, I thought if you don't want to lay the points with them in this spot, I think it's 30.5, 31.5. Be nice to get it, right around 30 there or underneath, but that's where it's at. I think you take that with Utah. I think they a tough game. I knew it was going to be tough. Under was money, and I had a little on BYU too, even with the revenge for Utah. So I like Utah here. I look at their team total though in this one. What do we get from Colorado off the bye?
That's going to be the big.
I don't know.
Yep.
And what's there? I wanted to double check. Okay, they lost 35-21 at TCU, and of course Houston put up 30 on them, 36-20. It seems like Utah could get that here.
All right, Texas and Mississippi State. We've got Texas 7-point road favorites, 46 the total. I'm on the Bulldogs here. Those, we got the cowbells going to be ringing like crazy on a late Saturday afternoon. Arch Manning is still not, impressing me with this offense. I mean, they escaped pretty much with the victory against Kentucky. If Kentucky had better quarterback play themselves, it could have been a different it could have been a different outcome. But again, another very, and I mean, I'm being nice when I say this, very pedestrian performance from the passing game from Arch Manning in Texas in that ugly 16-13 overtime win, 12 for 27. Like, he's not even completing 50% of his passes. There was no run game either. 12 attempts for 37 yards for Quentin Wisner for Texas. That's not what you want to see. They're very fortunate. They only had 179 total yards of offense. Kentucky had almost 400 total yards of offense, but Boley had an interception. There were a couple of fumbles. They were missed mistakes, penalties, field goal issues, kicking issues. They almost doubled Texas in time of possession. Kentucky in that game. You look at the box score and you wonder, how the fuck did Kentucky lose this game? I mean, really, against Texas last week. Give me Mississippi State. Blake Shapen and the offense is solid. They can move the ball a little bit. I know Texas defense is good, but Texas is not an offense I trust laying 7 right now. And I know Mississippi State's defense is a little iffy, but I thought they played pretty well against Florida. Had success early, and then Florida had a hard time getting much going after that. And even though Florida escaped with the win, I thought Mississippi State's defense hung in there last week. And if they hang in there again here, and dare this Texas offense to win by margin with this quarterback, Arch Manning, still having issues. And I think that offensive line has not performed the way we thought for Texas either. So I think it's a home dog spot for me. Mississippi State or nothing for me in this one. C-Mac, what do you think? Texas, Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think it's low scoring too. This total is low. I lean the under. I still think Texas defense is pretty good. Made enough plays like you talked about with Kentucky. We'll get to them. I think it's one of our last games with Kentucky here later. I think in a good spot, kind of like they were last week. A little different team, Kentucky at home. Even how bad they are, the better that offense there. But Mississippi State hung tough. The interception at the end, just killer against Florida there. It didn't matter. Florida, how about them? They just canned them anyways. Didn't matter, booing them off the field. So, but Mississippi State, I like them here. Good old Arch, as they call him. The offense is just out of funk. We talked about some of the problems that they've had. The running back, the receivers aren't getting too much too. Man, the separation. He doesn't have deep receivers.
No, no one's gaining separation.
No one's getting separation.
Playmakers there. I agree. Yep.
Yeah. So, Mississippi State here and under. I mean, if people think it's a buy low in Texas, I just haven't seen it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
With them, at least for separation and a big win.
All right, Texas A&M and LSU. We've got Texas A&M 2.5-point road favorites, 48.5 the total. LSU, Brian Kelly defiant after the loss to Vanderbilt, saying, we're not done yet. We're still in this. The SEC's hard. We can still win this guy. Yeah, it's probably true. They're not totally out of it, but that was still a very harmful loss. And I still don't fully trust. I mean, the offense is still a problem for LSU. Nussmeier is still erratic. It sometimes looks great. So it's looked great at times in that game, but when the game was on the line, they couldn't get things rolling. And the defense, again, same old shit with Brian Kelly and the defense. They can't stop mobile quarterbacks. Quarterbacks that can run the football. At some point, you got to be smart and realize Diego Pavia can run the football. Let's keep a fucking some linebacker, some safety in the middle of the field and make sure someone's there to wrap them up.
Yeah.
And they can't figure that out. They couldn't figure that out at any point in that loss to Vanderbilt. That's coaching right there. And unfortunately, it failed them once again. And look, what do you see here against a guy like Marcel Reed? He's a guy that's got mobility. He's a guy that can move around in the pocket as well. So you're going to have to be careful here. 55 rushing yards for him last week against Arkansas. And let's not forget what happened last year, 38-23 A&M over LSU. And again, Marcel Reed came in for Wegman, who struggled, and that's when the game turned on a dime. And Marcel Reed had 62 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and LSU could not do anything to contain Marcel Reed in the quarterback run game last year, I should say, in that loss to A&M. So I saw firsthand Brian Kelly couldn't defend Marcel Reed last year. I saw firsthand they couldn't defend Pavia, another mobile quarterback, last week. Why should I have faith they do it here? Why should I have faith they do it here? I lean A&M. It's the only side I could look at. Now, I will say A&M's defense, the way they played against Arkansas, does concern me a bit. They were leaky. But LSU, to me, this is a matchup that their defense has not shown me enough to give me confidence that they can handle it. The quarterbacks that can run have hurt them big time. And with that in mind, for me in this game, I could only look at the Aggie side. Maybe this can get over, but again, the LSU offense has been so disappointing. Yet the A&M defense at times this year has been disappointing. So I feel at home, LSU could maybe get their offense going a little bit. A&M scores with the mobile quarterback. So 48.5, maybe this can get over. And don't forget, it was 61 points last year with A&M versus LSU. What do you think here, C-Mac?
Yeah, I think this is a little bit of a sucker type bet
like.
Here with Texas A&M. People that like it, but if you do like A&M, I mean, this is it. I mean, it's under a field goal, but I don't buy it. It would be huge if they could go in there and win here at night.
It is a night game too. Yeah,
it is a night game for LSU. Awful loss. Yeah, Reed will be a problem for them, but I think Nussmeier will do enough in this game. I kind of like LSU, and I really don't love this team after the loss. But
I can't do it with LSU, but you're right. There's enough that might keep me off A&M. There's enough, but I worry about them containing Reed on the ground. Like they suck against mobile quarterbacks defensively. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
LSU.
We'll see. Reed takes care of the ball. They could go in there and win. There's just no way. To me, this is LSU or nothing.
All right, Missouri and Vanderbilt. Another good SEC matchup here Saturday. Vanderbilt 3-point home favorites, 52.5 the total. Yeah, I ain't stepping in front of Vanderbilt. I'm not. But, can they crank it up 2 weeks in a row? Big home win, national TV with Joe Tessitore screaming his lungs out Saturday in the booth. Oh, what a big run, Diego Pavia with a big run for Vanderbilt.
Shoot to his mom.
I mean, that guy's a WWE announcer. No wonder
he's perfect for that. Well, they hired him for that?
Yeah.
That was like the perfect guy.
It's funny when there's a 6-yard run and a big play there, 6-yard run, Vanderbilt. Yeah, I mean, it's just a 6-yard run. He loses his mind in the broadcast booth.
Yes.
Oh, man. Good old Joe Tess there for them. I love Vanderbilt. It would take at least 3.5, 4 for me to even think about taking Missouri. At 3 or less, I could only look at Vanderbilt. Let's not act like Missouri is coming up. Vanderbilt's off a big game. So is Missouri. They had to go to overtime. They had to extend themselves, and they had to play late into the night. So it's not like this is a phenomenal spot for the Missouri Tigers either. Going into this game. And when you look at the matchups too, Missouri does do a damn good job this year against the run. That is definitely something to keep in mind that could help them here in this matchup, because Vanderbilt's an offense where, their strength is running it, especially with Pavia.
Shit, Vandy's good against the run.
Vandy, of course, very good against the run.
Both these teams can run it and good run these.
That's why this is a tough game, because both teams want to run it. They both have quarterbacks that can run. Prabula for Missouri, and of course Pavia for Vanderbilt, and both teams are better running the football offensively than throwing it, and both teams are better stopping the run defensively than against the pass. So Tough game, but Vanderbilt is just I don't know if I bet Vanderbilt here. I did last week against LSU, but yeah, Vanderbilt's to me 3 or better. It's a lean Vanderbilt for me. C-Mac, what do you think?
I know you get 2.5s that are juice.
Usually win a big game on the road because that's the one thing they have not done under Drinkwitz. At home, they've had a couple big wins, but on the road, they've had a hard time getting them. And I don't count Auburn a big win. Auburn is not on the same level as Vandy.
Still, it was a good one on the road, OT.
Yeah.
Thriller type game. So, yeah, Vandy with all the hype now. And Vandy's just made us so much money the last few years. It's crazy how much. This game seems to be like it's going to be down to something tight. Missouri has really owned Vandy. Pribula, though, I think he can make mistakes. We've seen him the last 2 games. He got away with it. Missouri wins, but a couple picks. He had a couple against Alabama in that game. This seems like this comes down to a field goal type, game here. Because you talk about both teams, 200 yards running the ball. The defense is really good against the run. But in the end, even with all the hype, I'd rather have Diego Pavia at home. Like, come on. Who doesn't want this guy? I mean, we've been talking about it for years now. But this one seems like it could be tough. I know Missouri, that's why I wanted Auburn last week. I talked about horrible taking that game late and kind of ended up bad. But second straight road game. Seems like it's going to be good, tight. I'd still be on Vandy here.
BYU, Iowa State. We've got Iowa State 2.5-point home favorites, 49 the total in this game. BYU, I keep waiting for them to falter, and they're not doing it. They're finding ways. And again, last week against Utah, pretty clean game. Bear Bachmeier solid. Defense got stops when they needed it. Big physical game against Utah, 24-21, still undefeated on the year. Iowa State, though, at home, rested off a bye week. They haven't played since that loss to Colorado State. Here's my problem, though. It's definitely a great situational spot for Iowa State. No question. And I lean that way. But I don't know how good Iowa State is. You start to look more and more at this schedule. They beat Kansas State when Kansas State was struggling. They barely beat Iowa. Could have lost that game. They didn't look impressive against Arkansas State. I guess the one game they looked great was against Arizona. And Rocco Becht the offense looked great. And then since then, they lose to Cincinnati. They had injuries. And that's another thing, too. They have injuries in the secondary. And you got to defend Chase Roberts here and Parker Kingston, 2 really good receivers here for BYU. And if you're still injury depleted in the secondary, it could show up here. And then you lost to Colorado as a 3-point road favorite right before the bye week. I just don't know if Matt Campbell's team is great this year. They've had so many moments where they look okay at times, and they've looked very, very ordinary at other times. And I don't know if I want to lay points with ordinary against a BYU team that's showing some heart, some guts. You could say they're a little lucky, a little fortuitous, but they find ways to win, man. And I'm kind of pumping the brakes on the fade BYU train for now. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, Ron's right. Yeah, game day is at Vandy, Missouri Vandy. It'll be
good for them.
Hoopla.
Clark,
yeah. Oh, great football coach for sure. I think this is it, Bavano. Nobody wants Iowa State back. Lost 2 games in a row. They're off a bye.
Yep.
Just lost at Colorado. Nobody's going to want them.
Situational dream for Iowa State, no doubt. Yeah.
Situational wet dream here. Iowa State. You got to take. I've been waiting to want to fade BYU, and I haven't. I didn't touch that game against Arizona. They win the thriller there. And I wanted to back them even with the revenge last week. It was more under for me in that game, but I had a small bet with BYU, and this is the one I want to take here with them. I mean, the game could be tight, and BYU is catching a couple points here. I think the public's going to love BYU. Bear Bachmeier, he's a handful, though. Like, he's been very good. He takes off and run, and he's not easy to tackle. One thing has been good, Iowa State, there's problems with their defense. There's been problems with the secondary a little bit. So hopefully the bye week helps out. I'm going to have to look through a little bit more with that here, but I'm leaning Iowa State.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, Iowa State's in a great spot. Can they take advantage of it? That's going to be the big question. All right, Alabama and South Carolina. We've got Alabama 13-point road favorites, 47.5 the total in this game. South Carolina coming off that 26-7 beatdown at the hands of Oklahoma at home. Alabama with a very impressive win against Tennessee, 37-20. After that loss to Florida State, I got to give Kalen DeBoer credit, Ty Simpson credit. The whole team, the defense has gotten a lot better from that loss to Florida State. They've held each of their last 5 opponents to 24 points or less, including some good teams, Georgia, Missouri, Tennessee. We just saw Georgia shred Ole Miss, so we need to give Alabama even more credit for holding Georgia to 21 points in that victory. So this Alabama defense has come a long way.
It's looked good.
I don't think I'm betting this game. Everything tells me Alabama could win by 2 touchdowns or more. South Carolina's in a bad way right now, but it's not the best Alabama spot. South Carolina, believe it or not, last year took Alabama down to the wire in Tuscaloosa, and Lenora Sellers actually had a very good game. Even though he struggled this year, he had a really good game head-to-head against Alabama last year in that 27-25 loss to the Crimson Tide. So that part of it says take South Carolina here. So I don't expect to be involved here, quite honestly. In this one. South Carolina, I want to bet under. I would lean under, honestly, because South Carolina, I don't know if I trust their offense, and Alabama's defense is a lot better. Will Alabama move the ball up and down against South Carolina's defense? That's the question. But lean under. C-Mac, what do you think?
Here's the thing. Alabama, all these wins, they go through it. People are like, this is the one. And slip up this week, 4 straight.
Yeah.
They won. This could be the slip up. I think it's just
slip up is tough. They're in a dogfight. Maybe not lose.
Yes, they're in a dogfight.
Be in a battle.
Yes.
Yeah.
South Carolina, like if they are, I think it has to be an under-type game that their defense has to come up big. Sellers is just not look very good. He just doesn't have the running back, the running game, and the receivers, to get anything. It's been pretty rough to watch. So that leads me, to more of an under. And it could still stay under with Bama winning by a couple touchdowns or 20, or within a touchdown in this game. So I look out everyone that's running, loving Bama, the public here, after ripping off all these wins. Basically, Missouri was a push for most people. Some people 3.5. They got to win if depending on who you had there. But Alabama's looked very, very good so far. So I'd look out if you're just running to love Bama this week.
Yeah, I think
I want South Carolina. They just, God damn.
Like I said,
this is a perfect spot
to keep me off Bama. Ultimately, C-Mac, it's that Lenore Sellers actually played really well at Tuscaloosa last year. Now that's a different South Carolina team, and he really had his bad games this year. But he showed last year he could play well against Bama, and Bama does have a better defense. But like I said, there's enough concerns here overall to keep me off Bama. I'm not betting South Carolina, but there is enough concerns here to keep me off taking Alabama here, laying a number like this on the road. All right, South Florida and Memphis. Big showdown in the AAC here. We've got South Florida, 4-point road favorites, 65 the total. How about Memphis? 3 touchdown favorites, losing outright to UAB in their first game for the Blazers after firing Trent Dilfer. That's all they needed, Trent Dilfer out of there. And all of a sudden,
yes,
that's all they needed. First game without him, and they beat Memphis as a 3-touchdown underdog.
I was cracking the fuck up.
I was laughing my ass off. It was.
Right.
I think they're actually a bet on team now, UAB. I'm going to start riding them, honestly, because you're going to get great value with them because they were so bad. And I think Alex Mortensen, who, by the way, if you don't know, Alex Mortensen, the interim head coach of UAB, he's the son of the late ESPN NFL insider, Chris Mortensen, who was on TV all those years with Schefter, breaking the NFL news stories. So pretty cool. Good to see him get a win in his first effort as an interim, but terrible loss for Memphis. And they didn't just lose the game. They lost their quarterback, Brendan Lewis, as well. So keep an eye on his status, leg injury. We'll see if he's able to suit up here for Memphis. And if not, that means A.J. Hill will have to play. He had 175 yards, a touchdown, and an interception against UAB. South Florida, man, boy, they just freight trained North Texas, who turned around and freight trained UTSA last week. So, it's a pretty damn impressive team. 6-1 against the spread. Whether Lewis is in or not, there's no way I'm stepping in front of USF. I know they're 4-point favorites. This may still be a close game, but Ryan Silverfield ain't it. Coaching edge, in my opinion, for Alex Golesh. I've always said this, too, about Ryan Silverfield. He always loses a game he shouldn't. Always. Just when you start to buy in. Just when you start
to
He always does this crap, Silverfield. And here, sure as shit, 3-touchdown favorite against UAB, lose outright. So it's USF or pass for me. I think they're the better team, better coach. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, which I like that about South Florida. If you think this is low, you just ride it. Lewis has to play, I think. I think maybe he is with this line here. There should be a good amount of points. One thing, too, I don't know if it's crazy, but it's been, some of the numbers for Memphis, they haven't really played anybody, but I don't know who's the better defense. I'd maybe say South Florida. They still have their flaws, here, these two. So it's tough. But I think South Florida has a better offense. This is a tricky spot, though. And Memphis, just with the horrible loss, UAB out of nowhere, Dilfer gone. I think this game could be close. Memphis, too. Different South Florida teams, but they usually always just kind of beat up on them in kind of high-scoring games. We have a high total here. So this one's a wait for me, of course.
I might lean South Florida team total over as well, or at least split. If I bet South Florida, I may split it up between -4 and the team total over, but we will see closer to kickoff here. Yeah. All right, Wisconsin, Oregon. I'll keep this quick. Oregon 34-point home favorites, 45.5 total. Wisconsin team total under. Take it. Especially if Billy Edwards is going to be out again. And look, the problem is you're getting squeezed now. It's 6.5. So
that's insane. I was kicking myself. I didn't take. That was one of the lone bets that there's one other one, but not taking, Wisconsin at 7.5. Their team total under. Because I've been taking every week with Ohio State. Yeah. Shit. They can't 6.5 is wild. 6.5 is wild. They're daring you. Just can they get a touchdown?
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. But I can only look under their team total, especially, like I said, if we're going to get another game without Billy Edwards. And as of right now, he's questionable. Or you could go Oregon team total over. But I do want to say Wisconsin's defense hasn't been as bad as their offense. But still gave up 34 points to Ohio State. Shutout in back-to-back games against Ohio State and Iowa. Oregon can probably name their score here and probably completely shut down Wisconsin, especially if Billy Edwards is out again. C-Mac, what do you think? Wisconsin, Oregon.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. This game, too, just to throw out, has a little bit of rain maybe and wind. We're still far out, but we always like to just throw it out on Monday when we see it. Yeah, Wisconsin's defense maybe could do it, but I think it's Oregon here. After the loss, look at them. Team total or even first half in this game.
All right,
if Wisconsin can't score,
you
got you just get to 17 points here. First half.
All right, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. Texas Tech 38.5-point home favorites, 57 the total. You got to believe. Now look, they didn't have Baron Morton. Will Hammond was the quarterback. He struggled. Finally we saw for the first time a little bit of a difference. Morton to Hammond. He had a tough time against Arizona State last week, and they will miss Morton. We'll see if he's able to come back here for Texas Tech at quarterback and give Arizona State. I think people forgot going into that game last week that Kenny Dillingham's a good coach, Sam Levitt's a good quarterback, and Arizona State's still a pretty good team. He showed it last week, handing Texas Tech their first loss. That being said, I don't even care if it's Morton or if it's Hammond, because even Will Hammond, even though he's a bit of a drop-off from Morton, they're going to slice this Oklahoma State defense back home, in my opinion. This is a kick-ass spot. You just beat down somebody that you're capable of beating down. So the only ways I would look here is lay it first half, lay it full game with Texas Tech, team totals first half, full game over for Texas Tech. You name it. I'm interested. C-Mac, what do you think?
I think so. This is going to be, 24.5? I have to look at, I don't think we have first half team totals.
No, 48.5
team totals
out. Team total, right?
Yeah, the full game. Yeah. I meant first half. I just been really going after their first half every single week against Oklahoma State, and it's cashed. I don't know, every week because I've been on it. So, yeah, just after the loss, I don't think it matters if Morton's in or not. It seems like they're going to score at least. I mean, Cincinnati, I think, did they have 31 or 24? I think they had 31 in the first half this last week.
Let me just do a double check.
Check that.
I'll look it up.
Because they cashed over their 20.
Yep.
Their team total was 20 and a half. I've been trying to get it because mostly I've been getting 20 and under 3 touchdowns.
28 in the first half.
28.
21 in the second half. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think they get 4 touchdowns because anybody who's played Oklahoma State, I've been getting every team under 3 touchdowns. At Houston, I got under 17, or I forget what that one was. But everybody's gotten 3 touchdowns against them first half. It seems like Texas Tech is going to be over that, but they should be able to get 24 here in this first half, 24 to 28 points first half.
Illinois, Washington. Washington 4.5-point home favorites, 55 the total. Big Ten action here. Washington, tough loss against Michigan. That was a tough spot, though, too, right? They got to go halfway across the country to Ann Arbor, play an early start game.
And played horrible.
Well, they played horrible.
Yeah.
They did. I'll be honest. That's a couple games now. Washington has been, kind of disappointing. Although I thought the Ohio State game, actually, they still made a pretty solid showing for themselves. But, the loss there, the loss to Michigan, I expected a little bit better than that. But it is a bounce-back spot. They're at home. They're usually pretty good at home. Illinois is coming off a bye, though. Extra time to prepare for Brett Bielema and company. And, of course, they lost 34-16 at home to Ohio State. It's a good spot for Illinois. Man, they're getting points. But I still think Washington at home off a loss, I don't want to fade them. So it's a tough game, but it is a situational advantage here for Illinois. Altmaier on the road in that environment. Can he avoid mistakes? If he can, Illinois could win this game and at least cover the number. If he does make those mistakes, then Washington could get him. C-Mac, what do you think?
This is another one, a little bit of rain and wind. So just check this one later in the week. Washington struggled. I think they have an all right defense. I think Illinois off the bye is going to be able to score here. When I looked at this total, I think this could maybe get over here. Illinois, their defense, we've seen it struggle against some of these teams. Now they are off the bye. I guess they played a little bit better against Ohio State. At times.
Yeah, Washington, we've seen enough data points with Washington. They can't move the ball against the elite defenses, the really good defenses, but they can move the ball against everyone else.
Yeah, against anybody else.
Yeah. And I don't think Illinois is an elite defense.
No. Well, and I thought they're not as bad as they were. I mean, they were dealing with a lot of corners out. They had other stuff out with the defense some of these weeks, so they are getting healthier. It just seems Washington, a big bounce back after 3 picks from Williams and only 7 points. They come out strong. I think maybe, and we'll check the weather, but I leaned over when I was going through this last night. And I like Washington at home, but Illinois for bye. This could be a tight game. Altmaier, we'll see. Can we get good Altmaier or old, Altmaier?
Yeah, that's going to be the big
turnovers. That's kind of the big question.
No doubt. All right. Next up, we've got Houston and Arizona State. Arizona State, 8.5-point home favorites, 47.5 the total in this game. Obviously, look, Arizona State, huge win, monster win for them, handing Texas Tech their first loss of the season last week. I know they did take advantage of no Baron Morton, but still, Arizona State's a really good team, good game plan. Defense was really good, got after it. Made some big plays when they needed to. Sam Leavitt played probably his most clutch game of the season, for sure.
Yeah, he was good.
He needed to move the team, he did. And that was definitely this. And look, Arizona State and Dillingham, this is not the first time as a dog. They almost beat Texas in the college football playoff as a big dog. They were good as an underdog last year, but now they're off a huge win. They're laying a bigger number, and they're playing a Houston team that's very capable. I know Houston, one loss was to Texas Tech 35-11, whereas Arizona State beat Texas Tech, but still a Houston team that is in this role. They've been good. I usually like to take Houston when they're an underdog. Now, they've only been an underdog twice, the Texas Tech game, and they got blown out. But the Arizona game, they were a slight dog last week, closed a slight dog, and they won 31-28. Again, with this Houston offense, it's a work in progress, but I thought it was an improvement from Wegman last week. Dean Connors running it. The defense is very capable. And if the defense is capable here, this could be a spot where they can hang within 8.5 points. And it's not an optimal spot for ASU coming off the big win against Texas Tech. So I'm kind of leaning with the plus 8.5 here on the Cougs. And long-term, Willie Fritz pretty good in the underdog role as a head coach. C-Mac, what do you think here? Houston, ASU?
I think so. I think Houston is live here after the big win. Had two good defenses in this game. Arizona State just playing too. They're not playing too fast as well. I wanted to check
their
that you have the
numbers are not that high at all. Yes.
Yeah, I've noticed in their games they're not very quick, and their defense, and they've definitely been an under type team for the most part as Arizona State. What they've split here lately, the Utah game, of course, got over. They gave up 42 points, but a bunch of unders in some high total games earlier in the year. But yeah, two strong defenses, a huge win. I think with that, it's kind of lower scoring. And if Houston takes care of the ball, their defense can kind of keep them around here. And that maybe there's a little sleepy for Arizona State too. Maybe even Houston first half.
All right, good stuff. Toledo and Washington State. We've got Washington State 1.5 point home favorites, 47.5 the total. I'm riding the wave here, C-Mac, with Wazoo. I like them here. Back home in Pullman with the confidence of, even though they lost both games in tough fashion,
way better
confidence
defense
of taking Ole Miss and Virginia right down to the wire on the road in back-to-back games. I think now that there's a springboard here into this game against Toledo, and usually I like Toledo as a dog, but not in this spot. They got to make the long trip out to the Pacific Northwest. They beat down Kent State this week, but it's also the same team that was up 21-0 on Bowling Green the week before and just completely coughed it up and lost to Western Michigan with a big lead. So to me, this is a bit of a step up for Toledo here in this game on the road. I like the way Washington State and Zevi Eckhouse, I should say, the quarterback, since he's taken over, the offense has had a little bit, but it's really the Washington State defense that's really taken big strides the last couple weeks. And I think the defense and Tucker Gleason you can goad him into mistakes if you bring it on defense. And I think Washington State gets it done at home. I'll probably just take them on the money line with it being minus 120. C-Mac, what do you think here? Toledo, Wazoo.
Yeah, I think it's Washington State. I think they win here. This is cheap. Toledo, like what shows a lot of people in their stats, like this defense is good. They played nobody. Zero. Zilch. Nothing. Nada. I mean, Western Kentucky was
that's their best one, and even Western Kentucky's offense has been. Look, they just scored 6 last week against Florida International. Western Kentucky.
Yeah, Western Michigan, Akron. And this is just tough. You're going to want to go back to them in MAC play, or maybe even fade them like we do when they're going to be a big favorite. Pavana. So Washington State, the defense has been better. Like you mentioned, they're way healthier too. Toledo's got a few injuries when I was running through there. Some of the stuff last night. So I think it's pretty cheap with Wazoo here. They might not win big, but I think they win here. Get this. We're just having to lay a point. Just take a money line. 1.5.
And another game with rain and wind potential.
Yes. Thank you for hitting that. Yeah, up there.
Yeah. So make sure you keep an eye on that. All right, our final game for this edition of the show, Tennessee, Kentucky. We've got Tennessee 9.5 point road favorites, 54.5 the total. Arizona. What do we get from Tennessee? Tough loss to Alabama. We'll see if they can bounce back from that. Joey Aguilar. How about the fact that 20 points by far low for Tennessee? So that's why you got to give that Alabama defense a lot of credit. They're 0-2, by the way, against the spread now on the road. Tennessee this year. Mississippi State road game. They escaped with an overtime win, but did not cover. And then, of course, the straight up in ATS lost to Alabama. So on the road, this team is 0-2 ATS. And, Kentucky, that was a big step forward off the bye week. The defense really made life miserable for Arch Manning in Texas. And if not for all kinds of mistakes and miscues and failing to finish drives, Kentucky should have won that game against Texas. They almost doubled Texas in time of possession. Now, Cutter Boley is still a work in progress. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback, but when your other option's Calzada, you might as well just stick with Cutter Boley here. because I don't think there's much of a difference here when it's all said and done. Now, Tennessee has owned Kentucky. So that's my one hesitation here, and including four straight.
There's been some tight ones, though, in Kentucky. Yeah. But yeah, right. They beat him. Yeah.
You're right about the close games in Kentucky. That's a great point, because the last 4 games here in Lexington between these in-state rivals were 29-26 Kentucky, 17-13 Tennessee, 45-42 Tennessee, and 33-27 Tennessee. So they haven't won by this margin, Tennessee, at Kentucky in a very long time. So, early in the week, I do lean to Kentucky here. C-Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, shout out to our guy, Gorky, the $5 dono. Shout out to my guy here. He's got Texas A&M, Alabama, Utah, Western Kentucky team total, 20 over 25.5 at even money, and BYU riding BYU money line plus 105. Shout out to our guy.
Appreciate it, Gorky. Good luck.
Yep. Hell yeah. Shout out to the Goracle there. Yeah, Kentucky, 3 straight losses. I'm wondering too. They played that game tight as well. Like, could this have been over 10? I'd like that in this game, but it's not. We have 9.5. I was hoping for this game at 10.5. Tennessee losing, of course, not covering, and Kentucky just finding ways to blow it basically this last week versus Texas. So I think they can do enough. This is, of course, a rivalry. You mentioned it, owned by Tennessee, but it always usually is pretty close and pretty tough. And there's something different, this Kentucky team that plays at home. And after 3 straight losses, I think they come to play. I don't think it's pretty easy.
Dogs, ATS, covered against Ole Miss as home dogs.
I had that one.
Texas as home dogs.
And then they get Texas. And I looked at that a bunch, just the flash. But Kentucky had been so bad offensively the 2 or 3 weeks before that. I mean, they were again. But the defense played enough. It's still a good place to play. Kentucky, it's a raucous crowd. They bring it there, their home stadium. So, yeah, I'll lean here to Kentucky. Tennessee, a nice bounce back spot, but I don't know if it's going to be huge. Where they're just going to go and win my 3 touchdowns. And because as good as the offense has been, their defense is leaky. It still has issues. It's just Kentucky, I think, could take advantage of it a little bit, even how bad they are offensively.
Yeah. Right.
Savannah,
Yeah, they are bad, especially against the pass. But I'm starting to look at Tennessee against the run, and it's they can't give up yards on the ground. It'll be interesting to see how it goes here. The pass defense has really been bad for Tennessee. Ty Simpson exploited that last week. Can Cutter Boley do the same? That's the concern. But again, Tennessee has not beaten Kentucky in Kentucky by a margin of 10 or more in a very long time. So that's something you definitely want to factor in here, no doubt.
This is always big too in a game like this. They get like a defensive score or a special teams like that in these type games that you kind of might need. Yeah. That happens kind of crazy in games like this. So look out for that.
Sometimes they find a defensive score or special teams score to help them out, even if the offense is kind of lagging behind a little bit. We're not lagging behind because our show is done. We're done for the week. Thank you very much. Great show as always, breaking down the college football card. Shout out to everyone in the chat. FB Gotti, Gorky, Ian Shaver, Markel, Kenny Woo Woo Woo, Andrew G, FB Gotti, Ron Crawford.
Woo-woo.
Thanks for the membership to Ron Crawford as well. Robert Carlson, Jerry Davis, Mark Stesowski, Coffee Breakfast Picks. Actually, you know what? We can stop there because Connor Mack named all the others earlier in the show. So there we go. Great
Shout
stuff.
Out to everyone. Keep skating.
Yep.
Everyone, in here. Appreciate it.
Great stuff.
You guys.
We'll be back Wednesday, members only edition of Hitting the Books, and Friday, members only edition of Hitting the Books. 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Sign up and subscribe as a member.
Yes, sign up.
That. C-Mac, anything you want to add before we shut her down?
That's it. Shout out to the members. Wednesdays and Fridays. Shows going forward, at least for now, for a little bit of time until we kind of get going with some college basketball as we get there. But that is it. Everyone in here, shout out, become a member. You talked about shout out to people in the green. Dono, my man Gorky. Have a great week, my guy. I hope you cash big And that's it. For everyone else, just hit the like button. That's all we ask for. And I'll have the cut-up videos out later. Appreciate everybody. Thanks.
Good stuff. Awesome. For Connor Mack, I'm Ian Cameron. Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific, members-only show. We will see you then. And, of course, we'll also see you next Monday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, for another edition of the College Football Hitting the Books show. Until then, class dismissed.
Peace.